Well, this is a new day and another day of uncertainty for most. I, like many of you at home, and following the guidelines to self quarantine. So I'm talking to you from my kitchen, actually. I've been watching what is happening in the world right now, and I am very concerned for all of you, for my family, and for this country. As COVID 19 spreads across the nation, state officials continue to establish curfews and shut down public spaces. Due to the infectious nature of this virus, global experts, including the World Health Organization, have published preventative measures to reduce the chance of spreading the virus. Now, these include practicing respiratory hygiene, social distancing, and staying away from large scale public gatherings. To ensure that people start taking the coronavirus pandemic seriously, some cities across the country, in states such as Colorado and New Jersey, have already ordered residents to shelter in place. But on Thursday, March 19th, California Governor Gavin Newsom ordered the entire state's nearly 40 million residents to stay home, making it the first state to impose that strict mandate on all residents to counteract the increase of new infections. The order took place effective immediately and remains in place indefinitely. On Friday, March 20th, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said the state is being put on pause and people should only leave home for real urgent emergencies. Gatherings of any size are prohibited. This is just simply not life as usual. We have never seen anything like this. In very New York style, he said, deal with it. But there are many out there who are not taking this seriously, who roll their eyes and make fun of these orders of protection. And that's what I intend to address with you today. Now, listen, I've heard people, young and old, saying, look, this is a conspiracy. It's just something that's being drummed up to make people afraid, to get control, that it's some kind of economic conspiracy, it's some kind of political conspiracy. But let me tell you, science doesn't lie. And if you look at the videos and the body counts in Italy, for example, where they're actually having to bring in military trucks and haul the bodies out, and you see the families weeping as their family members are dying, and people that don't have respirators to help their family members, then I can tell you this is no drama that's being made up. I have very close friends that are on staff at Cedars-Sinai Hospital here, which is just a few miles from my home. I've had them come on the show and speak as experts. I've talked to them myself. These are my personal friends that I have known for years and years. They've been in our home with Robin and I, having dinner many times. I know these people personally, intimately, and they can tell me, look me straight in the eye and tell me this is real. This is a virus that is deadly. It is 20 times more contagious than influenza. That's why it is so important to follow these guidelines. So let's talk about how coronavirus spreads. This virus is thought to spread mainly from person to person. Now, that means if they sneeze or they cough, then a droplet from them gets into your mucous membranes. That means it gets into your eyes, it gets into your mouth, it gets into your nose, it gets on your hands, and then you touch your face, and it's absorbed into your mucous membranes in your eyes, your nose, or your mouth, and then you can be infected. It can be on a surface, and you can touch the surface and then touch your face. That's why wearing a mask can keep you from touching your mouth and putting it inside your mouth. Wearing a mask can protect others from you sneezing and a droplet from you going into their mouth or into their eyes. That's why we have social distancing. It's hard to sneeze 6 feet. You can do it, but it's hard to sneeze 6 feet. And the source for this is the CDC. So the way this is transmitted is someone sneezing, coughing, sending a droplet from themselves to you. So masks do help in that regard. They protect others from you infecting them. The overall coronavirus stats as of March 20th At 10:45 a.m., the total confirmed cases are 263,071, and the total deaths are 11,113. Now, out of that, 87,351 have recovered. And in the United States, we have 14,631 cases. This will have changed by the time you're watching this. And the total deaths in the U.S. are 182. And 121 of that 14,000 have recovered. And this comes from Johns Hopkins. So the point is that this is very real. It is very serious. And if you're telling yourself it's not, and you're ignoring the guidelines, you may think, well, that's my right. I can do that. Yes, you have that right, but you are putting others at risk when you do that. And it is a selfish thing to do, and that is not responsible. And we're going to talk about that today. Despite the pressure on citizens to stay home during the coronavirus outbreak, there are people who are still attending events with hundreds of people, as well as hanging out on beaches. I'm sure you've all heard about the 21-year-old college student who went viral on TikTok for licking a toilet seat on an airplane as she headed to spring break festivities in Miami. I mean, what the hell was she thinking? That's just got to be the understatement question of the day. She says it's the media's fault for making it a worldwide story. Well, I'm going to dial her on Zoom in just a minute. We'll be right back. Recent images of spring breakers partying on Florida's beaches raised public outrage and warnings from health experts who feared they would become infected and spread the virus to their family members. Now, 21-year-old Ava is a former guest who once told me she wanted to be Insta-famous. I invited her to join me on this Zoom session where I'm sitting in my kitchen because I'm respecting all of the guidelines saying stay at home. So I've rigged something up where I can talk from my kitchen because I want to talk to y'all about this. I feel like I have a responsibility to do so. So I invited her to join me on this Zoom session from my kitchen because she recently made news headlines after she posted herself doing something very unhygienic while on a plane to Miami for spring break during the coronavirus outbreak. So Ava, are you there?
Hi, did you miss me?
It's good to talk to you again. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm okay, and I've got a question. What the hell were you thinking when you're licking a toilet seat on an airplane on the way to spring break when the country shut down?
One, I had way dirtier things in my mouth that whole spring break. Two, I bleached that. Three, private plane. I flew down on my sugar daddy's plane with my best friend. So really, it wasn't that dirty. I wasn't putting myself or anyone else at risk.
Okay, well, you just said you bleached it before you did it, but then
I bleached it after.
You also say you did it to show that there's no danger and everybody shouldn't be concerned. So if there's no danger and everybody shouldn't be concerned, then why did you bleach it?
Well, I bleached it because, people poop on there. That's why I bleached it. And
well, you didn't say that. You didn't say I'm going to bleach this and lick it. I'm going to clean it like it was in a lab, and then I'm going to bleach it. So you lied to people.
Well, yeah, that's what the media is doing, I think, with this entire virus. Obviously, it was a social experiment more than anything else. Obviously, I wanted the clout off of it, and I was really annoyed that Corona was getting more publicity than me because I currently have a song going viral right now, and no one was covering it. So I decided to hop on the Corona wave. But yeah, I just did lie to people. Yeah, I did, and it did exactly what I thought it was going to do. It's funny because I created the fake news myself as I feel like I definitely represent the whole Gen Z population, and I'm not terrified of this. I basically took things that your generation and boomers are scared of, and I capitalized off of it, and it made mainstream media. So I'm sure there was government officials freaking out about it and things like that. I literally I manipulated headlines in the political ring. I had Meghan McCain talking about me. I was on The View, and I was sitting at home laughing while I was on spring break during the most of this. Just what the hell? These people literally blew this up out of proportion, created a fake headline that wasn't real.
So, Okay, let's move on a step further. You then went
Huh?
to spring break and hung out on the beach with a bunch of people.
I was fine. I made out with a bunch of people. I was not hygienic. I acted like a degenerate. My immune system was down from all the drinking and drugs. And for I should have coronavirus, but I don't. And no one down there does. There's not a lot of cases in Miami. And
Okay, well, let me interrupt you here. Here's the problem. This may be fun and entertaining for you, but then if you walk by somebody, or you go in the store, or you go somewhere and you sneeze or cough, or you touch a surface after touching your mouth or your eyes, and then someone comes along that is immunocompromised, that does have a respiratory problem, and they pick up your germs, you're putting their life at danger so you can entertain yourself. And that is ridiculously selfish and ridiculously irresponsible so you can have 15 minutes of fame.
well, that's their problem, first of all, not mine. And
It's not their problem. You're the one that's doing it.
you know what's ridiculously irresponsible and selfish is that your generation only cares about this virus because it affects you. No one cares when it affects younger people. They just say it's our fault. You guys are the ones dying of it, not us. So you're blaming all of us, and you're saying that you're blowing this pandemic to crazy proportions, instilling fear in the nation because you feel like it affects boomers. If it affects young people, you guys just find a way to blame us. But yet pandemic is affecting all of you, so you're locking everyone down and instilling fear globally. That's
I don't even know. That is so absurd. I don't even know how to respond to that. It's so ridiculous. The fact is, this is affecting young people as well. Young people are dying from this as well. Do you even know how to spell science?
Duh. I'm a senior at Rutgers, and now I don't get to graduate. I mean, nothing's happening, which is fine. Like, it's not like I really went to class. This whole thing's a joke.
So you think this is all a hoax created by Twitter? That's what you're saying?
I think, yeah. Well, one clout started this virus. A bunch of girls in China started eating exotic animals for views on YouTube, and I know for a fact that those bats probably do not taste good. They just wanted to shock people. And I get it because I'm a clout chaser myself. So this started a pandemic.
We have to take a break here. And I want to talk to Ava about the repercussions of what I think are spoiled and entitled behavior. We're going to pick that up right next. Millennials became the new target for health officials and the White House, due in part to what some people called a spoiled and entitled attitude. Now, I wanted to talk to 21-year-old Ava, who says older people are the ones really at risk for coronavirus, and younger people just need to get outside and enjoy life. Now, Ava, here's my problem. Do you have any concern about the fact that if you just get outside and enjoy life and perpetuate the spread of this virus, that you put more older people at risk? Does that concern you at all?
No. Honestly, just from based off of what I'm hearing here in this conversation, I wouldn't be surprised if you're part of the Illuminati or whatever government officials are pushing this virus. Because you're wealthy, obviously well known. I just don't think that this is as concerning as possibly as it could be, because I don't have coronavirus. I don't have any symptoms. No one I know has symptoms, and I was with thousands of people down in spring break, and I was kissing people. I was acting out, I was being promiscuous. I was doing all these things and having a good time, and nothing happened. You're calling me selfish, but you are the ones who are concerned because you're concerned about yourselves, because you're the ones who can die, and we can't. And so you're pushing this so hard.
Ava, wait a minute. You don't understand. Out of 508 cases, 20% of those cases were between the age of 20 and 44. According to the CDC, between February 12th and March 16th, 12% of those were in the ICU. Young people are getting this, 40% between the age of 20 and 54. So young people are getting this. You must, look, are you just saying this to get attention? You can't do this.
No, I genuinely think think based off, because the fact that I was able to create fake news, and that there was literal reports in the mainstream media that cocaine could cure coronavirus. Now, I wouldn't be surprised because there was a lot of cocaine use down on spring break and no one had it. So maybe that's why that was rumor was created. I don't know. But it's like the fact that these fake news reports, and my own fake news report, I was on Fox News. Like I was mainstream media for a couple of days and it wasn't real. So I just don't know what's true and what's not. I genuinely
If you
don't
infect one person that loses their life, is it worth it for you to have this attention?
yeah. I'm hearing you talk and you're like, oh, you're going to kill somebody? Like, you know what? Like, I'll pull up and I'll cop on you. Like, I'm just tired of it. This is ridiculous.
What's ridiculous is your spoiled and entitled attitude.
You're the boomer. You're the spoiled one.
Everybody in the country needs to recognize the danger associated with a highly contagious virus here. This is not a typical virus that you can pick up by the same way you do the flu. The flu kills a lot of people, it's true. This virus is much more contagious and much deadlier than influenza. This is something that we need to respect, or we're going to overwhelm the medical system, and everyone is going to be impacted. You're going to be impacted. Your graduation was canceled. This is impacting you.
Well, it is, but like honestly, I'm not complaining because now, it just gives me the time to do other things and pursue other projects besides school. And I know a lot of people my age are looking at this, and you know what you're going to say? We're not taking this seriously. You're giving us no reason to take it seriously. And it's like I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is just a bunch of older people pushing concern on something and limiting us and limiting our freedom over something that scares them right before an election of a controversial president. I'm just not buying it. I don't think other people are.
Let me finish this conversation by saying this. I want to appeal to everyone to completely disregard everything you're saying because I think it is absolutely absurd. I also want to appeal to everyone to not take action against you because of your ignorance. I don't want anyone to be violent against you. I don't want anybody to do anything to you. They can disagree with you. This is America. You have your First Amendment right to be wrong. And if that's what you want to do, then you have the right to do that. But I don't want anyone to act out against you or create violence against you. That's not what I'm looking for. Don't want anybody to do that. But what you're saying is infuriating to people that are losing loved ones, and I think they believe that this is absolutely absurd. I think you're being ignorant. I think you're being absurd. I think you're being ridiculous, and I just really hope that you don't really rue the day you made these ridiculous comments. So
I don't think I will.
I hope not. I reached out to an outspoken pastor who says his Louisiana church was recently visited by law enforcement because he violated an emergency order banning public or private gatherings of more than 50 people during the coronavirus pandemic. We're going to dial him up next. We'll be right back. I reached out to Pastor Tony and invited him to join me on this Zoom session. Tuesday night service at his church, Life Tabernacle, was recently attended by law enforcement. They weren't there to worship. They were there because they said he violated an emergency order mandated by Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards, banning public or private gatherings of more than 50 people during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, Pastor Tony admittedly had over 1,100 people at his Sunday service. That's over 22 times the amount of people allowed under the recent emergency order. Then he followed up with smaller service on a few days later, where 305 people attended. That's a little over 6 times the amount of people allowed by the governor's edict. So, Pastor Tony, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Dr. Phil.
Well, this is clearly a difficult situation for everybody, and I can imagine for you wanting to minister to your flock and bring comfort to them and deliver the message to them. This creates a real problem because a lot of these people rely on this every week and maybe sometimes more than once a week to come and and get the message and get the comfort that you provide.
That is accurate, Dr. Phil. We feel that we are as an essential part of our community as the retail stores, as the Mall of Louisiana that remains open to this moment. So it is in persecution of the faith for us to be asked to close our doors whenever more people are being contacted in those Targets and Walmarts than are in my service. And for them to say those are essential to the community operating, I say that the church is as and more important that we assemble together. We reach out, we minister to people, we feed people. We're the last stable institution in this community today. I guarantee you that.
Well, Pastor Tony, and let me tell you straight up, I very much am a Christian. I've had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ since I was 13 years old. I take this very seriously, so I have a great respect for what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
Also, I've read everything that you were kind enough to share with us about your thinking, and I know that you also have a healthy respect for the science involved here, and I know that you don't want to put anybody at risk.
I do not.
At the same time, and you say that the stores are open, and so you're holding your doors open, and two wrongs don't make a right. And what I'm concerned about is the science of this that I've looked very hard at. And trust me, I'm not an immunologist. I'm not an infectious disease expert, and I don't pretend to be. But I have had the privilege of talking to the world's leading experts on this. And the fact of the matter is, this is not a typical virus. This is much more infectious than influenza. It's much more deadly than influenza. And particularly for those that are elderly with underlying respiratory disorders like COPD or asthma, something of that nature, if they get that, particularly in a part of the country where there are not a lot of respirators or ventilators or resources to help them, this could be very, very deadly.
Correct.
And I'm curious how you feel about that in putting these people in such juxtaposition to one another.
My answer to that is, even if the stores were to close, we want to have the ability to exercise our First Amendment rights, which are your rights as well, but these are our freedoms that we hold dear, that Congress can pass no laws prohibiting or forbidding us to gather and assemble. That is a conviction of ours. And even if the stores were to close, we don't force anybody to come to our services. I'll tell you this, with the instability in my community today, I've ministered to 2 teenage girls, African-American girls, who have attempted suicide this week because their parents have lost their jobs, their schools are closed, they don't get their meals during the day, and these are troublesome time for them. We're ministering to them. We're not a part of the problem.
Well, Pastor, let me ask you this, and
yes.
I don't know if you ever watched Dr. Phil, but I do my homework, and I found some things out about you. And what I know about you is you are a highly respected individual in your community.
That is correct.
People look up to you, and
Correct.
And they have a lot of trust and faith in you. So I know your reputation is one of being a very responsible individual. And
yes, sir.
Because of that, you say that you certainly have the right of assembly under the Constitution, but with rights also come responsibilities. And
Correct.
I'm wondering if you feel the responsibility in exercising that right to set an example for people to protect themselves and be responsible in that assemblage. And if there's a way to do this where they can have the best of both worlds, where they can get the message, they can get the ministry of the Lord, and at the same time protect themselves as much as they possibly can by respecting social distancing, by using the technology of Facebook and presenting the sermons and the message over the internet, doing a conglomerate of things to get the message out to as many people as possible and yet keep them safe at the same time.
You make an extremely powerful argument, and it's in our favor. The majority of the congregants that I minister to do not have internet. They're impoverished parts of our community, 19 different nationalities where nobody else goes and ministers. I do not have the ability to reach them other than bringing them to a central point, which is the church house, feeding them, praying for them, preaching to them, encouraging them. Now I stand in solidarity with our law enforcement, governor, and national officials that, Pastor, this virus does not live outside. If you go outside, we will not infringe on your rights to worship at all. And that was very encouraging to me, because I'm not a revolutionary who wants to come against our government. I prayed with someone who had been exposed yesterday. As in minister, as a pastor, I have that duty to pray for them. We believe that we lay hands on the sick and people can recover, and that is yes.
There are some ways that we can do this with safety, and there's a big point that I agree with you on, and we have to take a break. When we come back, I want to tell you where you and I intersect instead of conflict. Pastor Tony says he plans to go about his plans for Sunday services as usual and expects minibuses filled with people to pull up to his church. We'll talk about what he and I agree on when we come back. I asked Pastor Tony to join me from Zoom from his church in Louisiana, where he says police officers recently told him that he violated the governor's current edict of no more than 50 people allowed to gather during the coronavirus pandemic. Pastor Tony says that won't stop him from ministering to people and plans to hold his usual Sunday service where he expects over 1,000 worshipers. Just before the break, I said there were some things that he and I agree about, and where it is that he and I agree is that I have said that I think this virus is very dangerous. I think it's very contagious. I think it's very deadly. But I've also said that I believe that we are going to have as much devastation and maybe as many deaths from stress and suicide and depression and reactions to the economic collapse, the disintegration of families from pressure, all the things of people losing their wherewithal, mothers and fathers feeling like they can't take care of their families, all because of the fallout from this virus. And people need help with that. They need support. They need to be ministered to, which is one of the reasons that I'm here in my kitchen when I've been told that the show needs to go on hiatus because we can't bring crew in, and we certainly can't have audiences, and we can't have crew in. So I'm by myself in my kitchen with no crew whatsoever. Everybody is working from their home because I want to deliver as much help as I can. So, Pastor Tony, I agree with you that we can't just abandon the people that we have relying on us during this difficult time, but I'm trying to figure out a way to do it where I don't put my crew in jeopardy. I don't put viewers and audience in jeopardy. I'm trying to do it where I use technology as much as I can, but you have you have a sector of the population that doesn't have a lot of these tools that you can reach them with, and that's a problem for you, right?
That is an extreme problem in my community. We're not in wealthy church affiliation by any means. And I'll tell you this, Dr. Phil, there's, as informed as we are about COVID-19, there are people that I reached out to yesterday who don't even know there's a scare in our nation.
Right.
They don't even know there's an pandemic going on. So there's a lot of underinformed people. Why can we not, as a nation, come to terms on what needs to happen? Because I can go across a border a few hours in every direction. There are people assembling where restaurants are open, but in my state, the restaurant owners in my church, their doors are closed. Another week, they will lose everything that they worked for years.
Well,
So,
let me say though, listen, you just have to look what's happening in Italy. You have to look at what's happening in China. You have to look at what's happening throughout Europe right now to know that it's just where you get into the curve as to
Correct.
where this virus is right now. And I wonder if you can even do some things like screen people that are coming in. I know if one of the infectious disease experts and immunologists are telling me that one of the first symptoms of this disease is a spike in temperature. And you can have the disease for a short period of time without symptoms, but an early sign is a spike in temperature. And if those people can be sorted to a different section
remote area, right?
of the church where they're not with people that aren't infected, if there are things you can do to try to at least separate those that are infected from those who are not, you might be able to save some people. Because if you have elderly people that get infected, listen, I do believe in the power of the Lord, but I'm one of those people that believes pray to God but row for the shore. He gave us arms and he gave us oars. We got to help ourselves as well.
That's so powerful of a point, Dr. Phil, because I have nurses in my church, dental workers who have no jobs right now because their offices are closed, evidently. We're taking the precautionary measures in the quote unquote buzz term now, social distancing. And if I have a medical professional that wants to come here because we are proceeding with our service, having temperature gun, check people's temperatures, and help me instead of fighting me. Help me, because we're not a part of the problem. We're the cure to the problem. Again, if somebody has a temperature, let's put them to the side. Let's test them, because people are going to be here. Why not medical professionals help me? I'm already, after the president's live address to the nation yesterday, when the Surgeon General stated that there is a blood shortage, I called our blood bank. She called me back within minutes and said, Pastor, we are extremely low. We would love to come. And there's a part of my sanctuary, 2,000 square foot area where they are going to set up and have a blood drive on my facility Sunday morning. Isn't that something?
Well, it is. And I know that you plan to bus in children, and
Yes, sir.
You may come into conflict with the National Guard, and I hope that doesn't happen. And I absolutely know that your heart is in the right place, and you're asking for people to help you, not fight you with this. And
Correct.
I know that your church feeds a lot of people. I know that you minister to a lot of people. And I don't think you're trying to be reckless in any way whatsoever. And
No, sir.
I really hope that people will hear what is being said here, and that they will step up and try to help you find a way to safely minister to these people with the Lord's message and keep people safe at the same time. Because I believe your heart's in the right place, and if there's a way to segregate those out and keep everybody safe, then we'll hopefully do that. So, the question is Pastor Tony prepared to be physically removed from a worship service the next time officials intervene? I guess we'll find out. So I hope that's not the case. We'll be right back. I invited Pastor Tony to join me via Zoom. Despite having his state banning all gatherings over 50 people due to the coronavirus pandemic, he says he will continue to hold his usual Sunday service, which is expected to attract over 1,000 worshipers. Now, I've talked to the pastor about alternative ways of delivering his message, but he does not have an affluent congregation, and they don't have computers. He can't deliver a FaceTime message, and some of them are rather isolated in Louisiana and didn't even know that there was a pandemic moving through the country and around the world right now. So they're rather isolated, and I can tell you, being from the South, the church is oftentimes the center of the community, the center of the family, and this is where people go. This is their life. And we talked to an internet individual before, Ava, and Pastor Tony, you have a very different attitude than that young lady did. You don't believe that this is a made-up pandemic. You don't believe that this is some conspiracy. You very much respect that this is a very real health challenge right now for people, correct?
Yes, sir. We are in agreement with that. Dr. Field, I have constitutional lawyers that worshiped with me Tuesday night who will be here Sunday morning as well, who are just as passionate about us continuing with our service for our First Amendment rights.
But some of your parishioners were actually suspended from their jobs because they came to this large gathering, correct?
They were in my service. That live stream video got out. When they went into work the next morning, they were asked to go home without pay. Their argument was, everybody in here was also at the store yesterday, at the gym yesterday. Why am I being singled out? That, my friend, is a persecution for the faith. Send everybody home, then we don't have a double standard. There's no problem. But to single someone out because they came to church, who were exposed to as many people as you were in that target. Don't be afraid of that cough. That is discrimination, and we have convictions, Dr. Field. The pressure of our friends, the pressure of our family, the threat of a lawsuit, the threat of imprisonment. And as each of the 11 of the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ died martyr's death, death will not separate us from our conviction of congregating, assembling together.
Well, Pastor, I hope
Yes.
that cough is not prophetic. And let me ask you this: if you were diagnosed with coronavirus, would
Right.
you continue to meet with your parishioners if you knew you had this highly contagious virus, COVID-19? Would you continue to meet with your parishioners?
I don't say that I would. I'm happy to be tested. I have a strong immune system. I've never spent a day in the hospital in my life. But I'm happy to be tested. People are welcome to come here and test us. But that's a great point. I'm not going to endanger anyone, but I do expect our services to continue with others who will fill my shoes until this storm passes by, so to speak, if that were to happen.
Well, we're out of time, and I want to thank you for discussing this with me. I know that you're a very well-respected leader in the community, and I appreciate you having this conversation. And you said if they send everybody home, then okay, just don't discriminate. That's
Correct.
what's happened in California, and I think that's what's getting ready to happen in Louisiana. So I don't think you're going to have a debate about this. We're locked down here, and we can't go anywhere. We're a shelter at home in
Can I
California,
interject, Dr.
and I
Field?
think it's going to happen real soon. I'll give you just a few seconds, and then we're out of time. Go ahead. You have the last word.
Dr. Field, the cannabis retailers in California remain open. yet you are quarantined and CBS studios have evidently closed, which is why y'all are at home. That, my friend, is in violation of yours and everybody in California who are my minister friend rights. They cannot worship today, but these mind-altering chemical sailors can still operate. That's my last word.
All right. Well, I hear what you say, and I just need to say I appreciate you talking to me, and you've been very open and straightforward about this. And God bless you, and I wish you the best.
God bless you, friend. Keep us in prayer. We're praying for you.
We'll be right back. There's no denying our nation has naysayers leading the charge against the coronavirus pandemic. I want to tell those naysayers some things that may change their perspective. Look, this is very real. The numbers are very real. The contagion is very real. This is much more contagious than influenza. So if you tell yourself, hey, listen, it's just the same as the flu, what can I tell you? That's not the case. It is much more contagious. And I, for one, am going to follow the guidelines that are set out. Do I want to do that? No, of course I don't. I don't want to be trapped at home. I don't want to not be able to go anywhere, go out to dinner, see friends. But we have to make sacrifices for ourselves and those we love. Please take this seriously. This is a sacrifice we need to make. I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you. I know you're used to seeing me with lights, a crew, guest, an audience, but I'm doing what the CDC recommends. I'm keeping my distance for the health of our country. So that means I'm at home. I'm self-quarantined. I'm actually in my kitchen with a remote camera. My dedicated staff is all working from home, so we're scattered all over the city right now, doing all of this electronically. So it doesn't look as fancy as usual. I'm actually using my phone here, but I just could not sit still and do nothing. This is a very critical time in our country. I know it's a frightening time. I believe this is the biggest emotional crisis for our country since 9/11. People are afraid. People are confused. We've never gone through something like this in our lifetime. I certainly haven't. And all we can reference this to is what we've seen in the movies or on TV. So as grocery stores are being wiped clean of toilet paper and food, there's another product that people are stocking up on, and that's guns and ammo. People who normally have never even given a thought to purchasing a gun are buying one. But is panic purchasing a gun really going to calm your fears, or is it going to lead to the kind of outcome you want? Well, I wanted to call up someone that I could talk to about this, so I set up a Zoom video call with Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva. Now, LA County is the largest sheriff's department in the country, and we're talking about 18,000 employees here, and the sheriff has some very strong ideas about this, and I want to hear what they are. And so, welcome, Sheriff. How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing okay here in Los Angeles. How are you doing?
Well, I'm okay. I'm following every rule and guideline that's being set out. I don't like them. I don't like being housebound. I don't like not being able to go to my favorite restaurant, but I'm respecting each and everything that's been set forth because I think it's necessary. So I'm staying at home and minding my P's and Q's.
You know what? You're doing what we would hope every single person in America does. That is hashtag flatten the curve right there. We need everybody to do exactly that.
Well, and I hope people understand that, because what you just said, flatten the curve, is even if we all wind up, or a big portion of us wind up getting this virus, if we can spread this out over time, over 6 months, 4 months, whatever, instead of everybody getting it right now, we're not going to overwhelm the medical system. We just have X number of beds and we have 2X number of people needing them at one time, then we're in big trouble, right?
That's exactly right. Our capacity is only so much. The surge capacity of all our hospitals is we're trying to build it up as best we can in anticipation, but it only goes so far.
Yeah. Now, how's the sheriff's department dealing with this? Because you still have to do what you do. You still have to have the officers on the street, and you guys still have to meet and have your briefings. How are you guys doing this? And have you had the virus hit your ranks so far?
It's hit our ranks, unfortunately. We've already had, early on, we had 3 deputies exposed to a patient who ended up dying of the virus in Walnut. And we've had about 48 of our employees have been quarantined. Thankfully, no one has tested positive so far. So we're taking all the measures in that regard. But as an organization, we've done an awful lot of vacations, all the non-essential functions. If it's not patrol or if it's not running the jails, we've been canceling those out. So it gives us a lot of people now that we can throw at having a bigger presence out there in the community.
Right. And as we shut down now, in California, for example, here, we really have gone to a shelter at home and only essential trips out. Are you concerned about looting and that sort of thing when people aren't in their places of business and not even really able to go check on them the way they ordinarily would?
Well, we're increasing the amount of deputies that are out there in patrol. All the one-man units are now 2-man units, for example, and we're having a big presence in all the supermarkets, all the shopping centers where people are gathering to do that purchasing, and they're waiting in line patiently. God bless them. We're doing that, but we also have deputies that are out there saturating the places that are now abandoned, that are shut down, because we know there's going to be people that are going to be opportunists.
Right. And we've had kind of a real spike on people purchasing guns and ammunition. And in talking to the owners of the gun shops, these are not typical gun purchasers, a lot of them. We've got little grandmas and other people purchasing guns. It's kind of hit a fever pitch at times. How do you feel about that?
Well, you know what? If people find security in owning a firearm, and I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, but we have to be a responsible gun owner. If that's something you are normally going to do and it's not a panic purchase, please, by all means, do what you need to do to defend your home. But you got to be a responsible gun owner. My concern, and it's a concern of every sheriff and police chief, is you're flooding the market in places that have a lot more people than normally do. They're not used to having a gun in that residence, and then all of a sudden have a firearm accessible to people that shouldn't have it. Maybe children, maybe the prohibited person that shouldn't have it, and of course people that are suffering from a mental illness, suicidal tendencies or thoughts. Having a firearm is not going to have a good outcome in those regards.
Right. And, to have if you buy a firearm, for example, in California, I think it's the way in a lot of states, do you have to have a license for it? Do you have to be trained for it in order to own the gun?
Yes, you have to have a mandatory waiting period. You have to pass a background check. You can't be a convicted felon. You can't have a mental illness. And you have to have a safety training. And all these things have to work in conjunction before you can take possession of the firearm.
Okay, so there has to be some things that you have to complete before you do it. So at least we have that. So maybe it'll make people think about it.
Yes, exactly. That's why the cooling off period in today's panic purchase is so much more important.
Why do you think people are panic buying these guns? What are they afraid is going to happen?
Well, you have an extreme range of people and different thoughts. You have your typical gun purchaser, but now they think of a potential of scarcity of resources, and people maybe perhaps looting, or whatever the case may be, that somehow they're going to arm themselves. But in most states, having a firearm in public requires a concealed weapon permit, which you're not going to get into the store, with few exceptions depending on what your state law is. But in California, that's a far lengthier process than just having a firearm and had license to possess it.
Right. So I guess we're seeing people panic buying and hoarding groceries and toilet paper and things like that. I guess I've talked to some people who are saying that they think they're going to have to defend their stash of groceries and things of that nature. Surely we're not going to get to that apocalyptic sort of situation.
No, I mean, some might have a 5-year supply of toilet paper. I don't know why, but they are. But I don't think anybody's going to come and take that at gunpoint. So we're present. Our visibility in the public has increased almost twofold now, and we're available at 911 call. We're there within seconds, almost throughout the entire county, and that's the same across the entire nation. Every police department, every sheriff's department, they're preparing. They have contingency plans in place, and we're working to make sure we have a very strong presence throughout the community.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a break. Now, next, you bought a gun, so now what? The sheriff's going to tell you what you need to do to protect yourself and your family from the weapon. We'll talk about that when we come back. According to ammo.com, gun sales are booming at nearly a 70% increase from February 23rd to March 4th. Joining us on Zoom, I'm talking from my kitchen today because I'm following all the guidelines that have been set forth for shelter at home. So I'm not going to the studio. All of my very able staff are working from their homes. So I've asked the sheriff, Alex Villanueva, to join me on this Zoom call. He is the LA County Sheriff, which is the largest sheriff's department in the country. And we're talking about guns. And as I said, the sales have just gone through the roof. There's been a 309% increase in revenue, 220% increase in transactions, 77% increase in site traffic at ammo.com, and 27% increase in the average order. So people are buying guns a lot. And so I'm wanting to talk to the sheriff about what to do once you buy a gun. And Sheriff, you were very helpful in pointing out that just buying a gun is not easy to do, and there's a lot of requirements to be responsible in purchasing a gun, and then responsibility in owning a gun. And once they get this gun home, you recommend doing what?
Well, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan of where you're going to store it. You got to have a plan of who you're going to authorize to have access to the gun. For example, if you have it in a gun safe and you have a combination, who do you give that combination to? Say a spouse gives it to the other spouse, well, that's fine and dandy, but you have to know this in advance. Only the people you want to have access to the gun have access to that firearm. And part of your planning process has to be, if there is an emergency that you think you may need to arm yourself, the first thing you need to do is call 911. We got 900,000 cops throughout the entire nation, 18,000 law enforcement agencies. Somebody who is armed and trained, has all the resources, is the one you want going to your house, responding to that emergency. And then you can, at that point, you decide to arm yourself, but at least you know the cavalry is coming to help you. That's a very important first step.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, I'm from Texas, and we've always owned guns, and people in Texas are always gun owners and hunters and things like that. But the last thing in the world I would ever want to do is shoot someone. And it seems to me that if you own a gun, that's your last resort. Your first resort, as you say, is to pick up 911 and call a professional. Call somebody that knows what to do, knows how to do it, knows how to diffuse the situation if possible. Using a gun should be your last resort, not your first resort.
Exactly. And actually having a firearm and shoot somebody, an intruder in your home, that's a very devastating thing emotionally, physically. You're not going to want to live in your house anymore. I mean, there's so many things involved with this process. And then the issue is, was it justified? Did you take the necessary precaution? Was the person running away and you in the heat of the moment are giving chase and shooting someone who's fleeing? All these things are very important considerations. So it's not something you should just, tread lightly on. You have to give it some serious thought, but get the rolling first.
Well, and as I'm sure you know, I am a staunch supporter of the men and women in law enforcement that stand in the gap for us, so we don't have to take on the responsibility that you men and women do. And we can't thank you enough for your service and all of the folks that that you have on your force that do that so we don't have to do it. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate that. And it is an awesome responsibility, and it's a very heavy and meaningful responsibility. And there are some other things that have happened with regard to this coronavirus epidemic that involve the jails and the prisoners and what's being done with them. And after the break, I want to ask you about what's going on with the prisoners, because we're actually turning some prisoners loose now and reducing the number of people that are being incarcerated because of this. And I want to hear your views on that. So if we can, we'll talk about that right after the break. The state of California has been told by the governor to shelter in your home. Now, what does that exactly entail? Well, joining me today is Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva. Now, Sheriff, can you tell us what exactly that means? Because a lot of people are confused about this. I've talked to several people on the phone, and they're saying, not sure what I'm able to do and not able to do. Can you tell us what y'all's interpretation of that is?
Sheltering in place or safer at home, all that means is go about your daily activities within the confines of your home. And if you need to leave it, it's for essential purposes. Go into the supermarket, go into the hardware store, gas station, maybe going to see a doctor, health practitioner. Those are the essential things. Outside of that, if you're a first responder, you're a healthcare worker, you have an essential function in employment, well, obviously you're going to go to your employment. But those are the ones we want to restrict all activity to. The rest of it is not essential, but you can go exercise, take a walk, take a hike, get on your bike, whatever the case is. The threat is contact with other people. It's not going outside, not going outside your home. It's just congregating in numbers. That is a threat.
Okay. And if you find people doing those things, what happens? Do they get a citation? Do they just get told to go home? What happens?
Well, we're looking for voluntary compliance, and that's where we need everybody to just work together and bear with it. The more we work together now, it saves us a bigger agony down the road. And then if someone is refusing to comply and they pose a threat to other people, well, then we can start escalating and get them to comply, or we'll take other necessary action.
So you're just trying to facilitate right now. You're not trying to be heavy-handed about this. You're just trying to get everybody to say, hey, come on, let's work together here. Exactly.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Right. Now, I want to talk something about the jails, because I've read in the media that you have started unpacking the jail some and have released a fair amount of prisoners from the jail, because that's a concentration of proximity of people packed in together. And so you've released a fair amount of inmates. Tell me about that.
Well, our jail conditions inside the jail, we have the nation's largest jail system. And you have people that are in poor health in the average population, and they're in real close proximity. So you have the worst of two worlds together. So we're doing a very delicate balancing act between public safety and public health. And what we're doing is we're not going to release anybody who pose a threat to the community. Violent felons, all those people, they're going to remain locked down for the duration of this pandemic. People who are short, they have 30 days or less on their sentence, for example. Misdemeanor crimes, we're trying to prevent people from entering the system unless they're a violent felon. Then those, of course, are going to be booked as any normal operation. So we're reducing the flow into the jail, and those that are 60 and older that we can release because they're nonviolent felons, we're working on a way to get rid of them. And we've also then, the ones that have less than 30 days on their sentence, we also got rid of them. So we've been successful in decompressing the population while still maintaining the safety of all of those that are incarcerated who pose a threat to the community for the reason why they're in jail.
Mm-hmm. And your number of arrests have dropped quite a bit. The daily average arrests have dropped from 300 to 60?
Yeah, the bookings into the county jail have dropped that much. And that means that all of the agencies throughout LA County are doing a very good job. They're triaging the people that need to go to jail because they harm someone and they pose a threat to the community. They're still going to jail. We can also cite out other crimes, property crimes, for example, and they'll be dealt with at a later date through the criminal justice system. So we're holding everybody accountable. We're just making sure we use our resources wisely.
Okay, and you're watching the population and tending to their health, and you've quarantined people in the jail that have started to show some symptoms, correct?
Yes, we have 109 people in quarantine. We got 14 in isolation. So far, they've all tested negative. So they might have a variety of other ailments or flu they're suffering, but so far we've had 0 that have tested positive. And that's so far, knock on wood, we're doing the right thing.
You bet. So 109, 14 quarantine, 0 have tested positive. So
That is
right
correct.
now, you're clean inside the jail.
Yes, we're doing thermal scanning inside of our 2 jail hospital areas, and we're limiting any access to the jail. We have no more jail visits from the outside. So we want to protect a vulnerable population while at the same time we're protecting the county from part of that population in the jail.
Wow. So knock on wood, as you say, we'll hope that continues. Hope that continues.
Yes.
Well, so many people want to help others in need, but there are scams to look out for, and we'll let the sheriff tip us off to those right after the break. The FBI and the Federal Trade Commission are increasing efforts to crack down on an explosion of scams related to the coronavirus outbreak. The rise in scams have come in the form of email phishing campaigns, fraudulent goods, and disinformation campaigns, according to a report from a cybersecurity company. Now, joining on Zoom is Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva. So, Sheriff, we've got people out there, as they always do, when people are at their most vulnerable, they're desperate, they're looking for answers, and they're preying upon them. What advice can you tell people just generally to protect them from these scammers?
Well, there's a special place in hell for people like this. And for people to be on the lookout for them, just be aware, government does not work on sending emails. We don't work with unsolicited knocking at your door, unsolicited phone calls. If it's unsolicited, red flag has to go up immediately. If you have a doubt about it, call your local law enforcement agency. Hey, I had this person on my door. Can you help me verify who they are? Most importantly, to never, ever let them inside your home. Don't let them distract you, because a lot of times they work in pairs. One person at the front door, the other person's at the back door going inside your house, cleaning you out while you're talking to the guy at the front of the house.
One of them now is the Southern California Edison scam. They're knocking on the door and saying, we're here to disconnect you for non-payment. So you got to pay us $100 now or $200 now. And people are falling for this. They're giving them cash on the front door, and they don't work that way. Southern California Edison doesn't show up and knock on the door and demand cash, correct?
Correct. Every transaction they do is via mail, and you can go online to your account with Southern California Edison, for example. That is the only way bills are settled. There's nothing ever collected in person for any of the utilities.
Right. And for more information about these possible scams, you can go to www.consumer.ftc.gov. And we'll put that up on our website so you can find it. And the tips from the FTC say don't click on links from sources you don't know, and watch for emails claiming to be from the CDC and prevention or experts saying they have some kind of cure for the virus, because we don't have a cure. We don't have vaccinations. And they're offering you vaccines, pills, potions, lotions, lozenges, or prescriptions for over-the-counter things that are going to protect you. Those just don't exist. So don't fall for that. They're just absolutely not there. Do your homework. And as the sheriff says, pick up the phone if somebody's on your front porch and call, because you guys will come and run them off, right?
We will do exactly that. In fact, they'll be gone before we get there, usually, because they know we're coming.
And a big flag is ever asking for these gift cards and cash. Either of those two things are big flags, right?
Yes, correctly. We only do business via check, account to account, online, through the website of the utility. That's the only way transactions are done.
Right. Now, Sheriff, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time here today. Is there any final message that you really want people to know and hear? For me, I've listened to this stay-at-home message, shelter-at-home message, and I take this very seriously. I'm following every guideline. I'm adhering to social distancing, self-isolation. I'm not doing anything that's not essential, and I'm resisting congregating with other people and trying to flatten this curve out. And I want to be a good example for that. I'm trying to do all of that. Is there any other message that you want people to hear from you? Because you're a powerful leader in this community, so I'd like them to hear any message from you.
Well, first, I want to thank you, Dr. Phil, for the message you're doing. That is a public service announcement. That is the best thing possible we can do. And I agree with you. My Instagram is at LACO Sheriff, and then hashtag flatten the curve. Exactly that. We're all in this together. And the more we work together to keeping the distance, we're going to minimize the spread. Eventually, the virus is going to die out when they run out of hosts. That's the entire idea of flattening that curve. So the more we work together, the reward is the entire time, the number of lives affected is going to be minimized. So let's get this together.
Well, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I've been concerned that the stress, the pressure, the fear, the confusion is going to create as much havoc as the virus itself. People panicking, suicide, depression, all of those things. And by us having this conversation and people feeling like, look, we're not in this alone. The sheriff and all of his people are there to help. I'm here delivering this message. I just want people to know that we're here. You're here, I'm here, and we care about everything that's going on in this community. And this will flatten out, and we will get back to our normal lives. This too shall pass. And if people know that and they feel that from you, from me, and from others, I just think people will relax some and know that this too shall pass.
All right, that's an outstanding message.
Thank you so much for your time. And once again, thank you and all of your men and women in uniform for standing in the gap for those of us that need you so much. You keep us all safe and secure, and we really, really appreciate it. So, Sheriff, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
Okay, we're back, and I wanted to answer some questions that I'm seeing just come through over and over and over again. And one of the main questions that I'm seeing is, why are we so concerned about this particular virus as opposed to others? Because we've had serious viruses in the past, no question about it. So why this one? Why all this big flap? Why hasn't this happened before? Well, I made some notes about this from what I've gathered from talking to immunologists and molecular microbiologists, public health officials, looking at the research, taking all the politics out of it and just looking at the science, looking at the research. Why are we so concerned? Well, this is an unknown pathogen. This is not something that we've seen before. It's not even in the family of something we've seen before. And that means we don't have any immunity built up to this. So this is something new, so we don't have any way to fight this off. And it appears that this has jumped from the animal species to humans. And that's why we don't have anything to fight it off. And so it's spreading really fast. You might remember back in 2003 in China, there was the SARS, and it had a mortality rate of 10%. And this has only 3%, which is really bad. But the typical influenza, typical flu has 0.1%. So 0.1% versus 3% means this is 20, 30 times more lethal than flu. Because everybody says, well, flu kills a lot of people. Well, yes, it does, but it kills a fraction of what this virus seems to kill. Now, that number is going to go down as we find more cases, because a lot of the cases right now are unreported. So that percentage is up around 3%, but it's probably going to come down. And this is a virus that stays on surfaces for days. Now, that's not the primary way you get this. And people are saying, okay, exactly how do I get this? Well, the reason they've gone into this social distancing is because the way you typically get this is somebody sneezes or coughs and droplets. Whenever, sometimes people talk and they spit while they're talking, or they cough and droplets come out of their mouth or their nose, and they actually fly in and hit your face, your eyes, your mouth, or whatever, and it gets in. You have mucous membrane in there, which is a real damp membrane, and it just absorbs that, and it gets into your system. So the reason you've come up with this new term, social distancing, is because you can't usually project that far. So they say if you stay 6 feet away from someone, even if they sneeze or cough, it's not likely to get to you. It could, but it's very unlikely. But it stays on surfaces for a long time. It can stay on cardboard for not very long. So if you get things delivered to your house, it doesn't stay on cardboard very long. It doesn't stay on copper for more than 4 or 5 hours, but on steel or countertops or whatever, it can stay for 72 hours. So then you put your hand on that surface, then put your hand to your face, and it gets in your eyes or your mouth. So the reason we're so concerned about it is a new pathogen that we don't have any way to fight off, and it's transmitted by someone spitting on you, coughing, droplets, and it's highly contagious. So that's the reason we're making such a big deal out of this. We don't have a vaccine for it. If you get the flu, we have Tamiflu or different sort of things you can take, antivirals, to fight it off. We don't have anything for this right now, and they are suspecting that any kind of broadly available vaccine is a year away. And that's why they're saying stay home, stay away from other people. So if we quit passing it on, it will die off. Now, another thing that people are interested in is whether or not you can get this and know what to expect. 80% of the people that get this have mild to moderate symptoms, and then they get over it. So if you're panicking and telling yourself that this is, oh my God, if I got it, it's a death sentence, that's not the case. It's not a death sentence. If you get this, you're probably going to be sick for a while, and then you'll get over it, and you'll go back about your life. But the problem is, if you do get it and pass it on to someone that is not well, they're elderly, or they have some sort of respiratory disorder, their lungs aren't healthy, it could really have a very bad effect on them. So it's not just whether you get it or not, it's whether you get it and pass it on to someone that's not very well. And that's why all this isolation is taking place. They're very concerned about those that are in a high-risk group. And even if you're not in a high-risk group, you need to be aware that you could infect someone that is. So we have to be selfless here and take care of those that might not be able to fight it off as well as we can. Now, we also need to think about anxiety here. What if you're spreading your anxiety to others? Because people are confused, and knowledge is power. And that's why I keep talking about what the facts are, how you get this, how bad it can get, what the realities are, and blowing up some of the myths. You don't want to panic other people. And ask yourself, are you overreacting to this with your own anxiety? And are you whipping others up into anxiety? And if you are, you certainly don't want to do that. And you sure don't want to do it with your children, because they take their cues from you. So you want to be respectful of this and be serious about it, but don't get your kids freaking out because they see you freaking out. Show a healthy respect for it, and then calm down and make sure you don't get them where they become just terrified by something that you really can do something about. So, can you actually influence this, or are you helpless? I'll talk about that when we come back. Well, I'm answering questions that I'm seeing come through an awful lot. I'm just picking those that really are frequent. And one of the frequent ones is how to help someone in a potential domestic violence situation, someone that is stuck in a mandatory quarantine situation, but you know that they're living with someone that has an anger problem, a violence problem. And I want to answer this both in this situation and kind of in a general situation, because right now, well, Illinois has just joined California and New York in being in a complete lockdown situation. So we have 70 million people now that are under a stay-at-home order. And you just know out of 70 million people, there are an awful lot of folks that are living in a situation with an abuser, whether it's a child or in a marital situation, whatever, that there are people out of those 70 million that are in an abusive situation. You have to check on these people. You've got to listen to these people. You've got to be willing to step up and call for a welfare check for these people. Because trust me, the number one tool of the abuser is isolation. And now they've got isolation mandated. This is heaven for an abuser. This is a situation where they have it mandated to cut off their victim from the world. They have it justified where they can't see their mother, they can't go to their church, they can't contact people that can see bruises, can see black eyes, can see the things that would be red flag warnings to others, to step in and intervene for them. So listen to your gut. If you know that someone's in a situation that you have suspected that they're in trouble before, take the initiative. Read between the lines, listen, call. And if for some reason you just can't seem to get them on the phone, they're always busy when you call, and the suspected abuser is the one that answers the phone or no one answers, then you do need to ask for a welfare check. And here's how you do that. You call the sheriff's department and you simply tell them, look, I have a friend that I believe is in a very high risk situation. I have a situation where children, I fear, are being abused. I don't know that, I can't prove that, but I'm just telling you what I fear. And so I'm asking for a welfare check. They will keep you anonymous. They won't disclose who you are, but they will show up unannounced. They will knock on the door, and they will demand access to the home where they can check, and they will demand to see the children, they will demand to see the wife, and they will demand to see them outside the presence of the suspected abuser. And if there is evidence, they will remove them from the home. They will take them safely away, and they'll take them to a shelter for women and children that are being abused. That's exactly the kind of organization that When Georgia Smiled, my wife's foundation, supports. So you're not helpless here. You can help those people. Ask for a welfare check if you have to, but call, check on them, listen to what you're hearing. Don't leave those people stranded. Let them know that you're out there. I'll answer one more question when we come back. Well, we're back. I said I was going to answer one more question, and one of the ones that's coming up an awful lot is how to talk to the children about this, because they're really confused and they don't understand. And I'm just going to give you a few points here. Number one, it's really important to meet your child where they are in their knowledge. Don't assume what they know. Don't assume they know a lot. Don't assume they know a little. Ask them what they know. Listen to what they know and meet them at that point and build from there. And they'll tell you what they understand, and then you can blow up any myths that they're embracing. You can take away any misunderstandings that they have. So ask them what they know and give them whatever explanations they can handle based on the language they're using. That's very, very important. And don't try to say, oh, you're silly to be concerned about this. That's the last thing you want to do, is make them feel silly. Say, oh, listen, I understand. This is different. This is very concerning, and I'm concerned too, but we're not helpless here. We have tools. And when it comes to like hand washing, that sort of thing, make it a game. Let's see who can get our foam the biggest. You know, let's get side by side and see who can get the biggest foam in washing our hands. Sing a song with them while they're doing it. It doesn't have to be morbid all of the time. Work with your children and explain what they need to understand, and make everything that you can a ritual, a game where you do it with them. And make sure when they're watching television that you're there with them. You're watching that television with them so you can explain anything that they might see that could be scary to them. Don't let them watch that news by themselves if they're 10 years, 11 years, 12 years old. Be sure you're watching it with them to explain. Now, listen, we're getting more and more restricted every step of the way. There's real simple math here. We don't like this. We don't like being locked away. But think about it. If we all silo ourselves, if we just stay just contained completely and we don't go outside that circle, then we can't spread this. We can't give it to our neighbor if we don't go over to our neighbor's house. We can't give it to the person sitting next to us in a restaurant if we don't go to a restaurant. If we stay home, it dies out. And when it dies out, life gets back to normal. And that's what we need to do. The math here is simple. This spreads if we contact other people. It doesn't spread if we don't. So we have to make the sacrifices now. And if we do, this will flatten out. And when it flattens out, it will start going down. I don't like this either, but we have to be willing to do the things we have to do and make the sacrifices. And when we do, this too shall pass. So let's support each other. Let's stay calm, and we will get through this, and it will be past us, and we'll have stories to tell for the rest of our lives. We'll see you next time. Well, it's another day fighting the global coronavirus pandemic that has taken over our lives. I'm here with my wife, Robin, and we're sitting in our kitchen because we're not working out of the studio because we're respecting the social isolation guidelines. It's unprecedented what we're seeing in this country and around the world. As a result of this viral pandemic, people are spending more time at home, looking around and thinking, how many more days can I handle this? But we're sticking in okay, right?
Yeah, so far so good.
Yeah.
I actually am loving being at home and being isolated and just spending this time together and doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, isolation, quarantine, trapped in close quarters for longer periods of time than ever before with spouses and partners. That creates a challenge for some people, and that's what I want to talk about today. Robin and I are going to share what we've been doing, and we're going to talk about how to avoid relationship conflicts that can sometimes arise when you spend more time together than you're used to. Now, my focus is and always has been to give practical advice and direction to help make this chapter in our lives one we can learn from rather than be fearful of. And as I said, you can see we're home now in our kitchen. I'm speaking to you on my iPad. And many of you are also home with your partner or spouse and feel that you've seen in their faces or heard in their voice maybe a little tension, a little stress. And you're not alone because we're hearing that from a lot of people around the country. Have you heard it from your folks?
A lot
Your
of my
friends?
friends, yes, they
Yeah.
touch base with me and they're asking a lot of questions. Could you ask Philip this and could you ask Philip that? And I don't even go ask him. I just tell him myself.
Well, of course. Marriages and relationships nationwide are under a very unique pressure right now. Over in China, where self quarantining has been in effect since January, think about that January, February, and into March, there have been several reports of a spike in divorce applications, with one law office receiving over 300 filings in just 3 weeks when normally they would get maybe a dozen. Experts predict the divorce trend in China will eventually make it over here to the U.S. as we all spend more and more time together. So, how do we, and I include my wife Robin and myself in this, maintain harmony in our marriages and relationships during this time? Well, I know how I feel, but I can't speak for Robin, so I'm going to bring her into the conversation now. And, I think part of it, we seem to be getting along really well, at least I think so. But I think that we're not sick.
No, we're not sick.
We don't have the flu. We don't have it, which puts extra pressure and tension on you. And both of us are feeling fine. But let's be honest, how's this going for you?
Did you just stop it? Let's be. Notice he didn't say honest. Why didn't you say honest? No, just kidding. So, actually, we're doing fine because we're going along with our normal lifestyle. And when we're at home, we're not glued together all the time. He's doing his thing with research and working for these shows he's doing here at home. And I really admire him for that. I'm so proud of him for that. So I leave him alone to do his thing and I go do my thing in the house. And it's pretty much normal activity, normal life for us. And however, things have changed, of course. I'm actually cleaning out closets and cleaning out drawers and rearranging things in my own personal space. But that's something I love to do. And our life has been so busy over the years that I haven't been able to do that. It brings me comfort. So we're allowing ourselves to do things that we normally do, but also add in things that bring us comfort.
Yeah. And I was kind of talking to one of my friends the other day on FaceTime, and I said, we're a little embarrassed that we're such homebodies that we're not really noticing a big difference
That's true.
in terms of stay at home, because we do value our time at home, because when we're out, it's really hectic. And I think part of it is, you and I talked about it at the very beginning. And I think it's important to acknowledge and not just kind of go silent about it, but to acknowledge and say, you know what? We are in a different time here. You have to acknowledge that and say, look, this is going to be different. We're going to be spending a lot of time together, and we're going to be here more, occupying the same space than we normally would. Is that an issue? Is it a problem? Is there something that I can do to make this easier for you or you for me? And I think if you just talk to your partner about it straight up and not pretend that there's not something kind of hanging in the air, then I think it makes it a whole lot easier
That's true.
to deal with.
That's true. Now, some of the things that we have done that's not always common. We live alone, of course, and so kids are raised. We've always cooked together, but now we've stepped that up. We've cooked every meal together, and we really are having fun doing that. We binge watch TV at times before, but now we're really looking. He's searching for fun movies. They're different, and so we've kind of added a little difference to what we've always done. Different movies, different foods, those kind of things. So we are purposely looking for some variety in the normal things we do here at home.
Yeah, like we made chicken and dumplings the other night.
Yes, and I'm always the one that makes them. But
yeah, and I never knew how you do that. So how you did that? So we got in here, and I got the rolling pin. It was actually working on.
I had to make you stop. He was getting a little too thin, but
they were getting they were falling apart when I was putting them in.
We had them all.
But really, you can find things to do. And here's the thing: just resolve. Think about how many times you said, I wish I had more time with the children. I wish I had more time for us to kind of talk and hang out and not have something pressuring us time-wise. And so I think as we've done that, we've really held on to that and grasped time. And listen, this is a difficult time because there's so many unknowns, and you've got the pressure of thinking, my gosh, am I going to get sick? And how serious is it going to be? But it's also okay to have a sense of humor. And we've been on FaceTime with Jay and Erica and Avery in London, and we've yucked it up with them, with Jordan, who's living out in Malibu now. We've had just so much fun talking back and forth and gotten where there's like 5 or 6 of us on screen at the same time and had a good time. And it's okay to laugh and have
yes.
fun with us. You got to do that.
I saw something yesterday about a grandfather seeing his grandson for the first time. His son held his new baby up to a window, and that grandfather got to see him for the first time through a window. And to me, it was just so loving and so sweet because they were all taking such care to not be around each other. And that's what isolation is all about. It was kind of sad, but to me, it was beautiful because that describes the isolation and how important it is.
Yeah, and you can use the technology. So here are some questions that people are already asking after a little over 2 weeks of being quarantined in the U.S. How can we learn to fight fair and resolve conflict? How can we meet each other halfway when we have different ideas about how to comply during this lockdown? How in the world are we supposed to live under the same roof without ripping each other apart? How can we communicate better under quarantine? Well, I'm going to talk to a couple of lovely people who have been married almost as long as we have. They've been married 42 years. They practice law together. And they've reached out to us because they said self-isolation is kicking their marriage's butt and they need some guidance. So we're going to patch them in here in just a minute and talk about that. We'll be right back. I want you all to stay as healthy as possible during this pandemic. And of course, that includes your mental health as well. Now, tomorrow we'll be talking about tricks to retrain your brain during times of great stress. I'll be giving you some important tips on how to deal with this when you're facing major anxiety and worry. But that's all tomorrow. Now, with public health officials encouraging self-quarantining and social distancing, COVID-19 has shifted the topics that couples most fight about and put immense pressure on previously existing issues. Now, in light of mounting concerns about it spreading in the U.S., arguments about whether to quarantine or not and how far to go with self-isolation has put marriages to the test. Now, I've invited Pepper and her husband, Pearson, to join Robin and me in this conversation. Now, they're retired attorneys from Georgia who say that the coronavirus quarantine has pushed their 42-year marriage to the limit. So let me invite Pepper and Pearson to join us here. So, guys, how are y'all doing?
We're doing well.
We're doing great.
Surviving.
Well, say hello to Robin. She's joining me as well today.
Hello, Robin. How are you?
Hi,
I'm
Robin.
doing great. Hello, Pepper. Hello, Pearson.
Now, let me ask you guys, you've been married 42 years, and Robin and I have been married 43.
That's right.
So you guys are chasing us. We got one lap on you. We're 1 year ahead of you.
That's amazing.
Yes, congratulations on that. Now, let me see if I've got the facts right here. You guys actually met in law school, right?
Yes, we did.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and you actually do a marriage ministry where you work with folks to help help them learn to do well in their marriage and resolve conflicts in their marriage, correct?
Yes, we've been doing that for over 30 years.
Yes,
Oh,
Congratulations.
great. And you're writing a book, I understand.
that's right. And we needed it as much as the people.
Well, I have to tell you, I am just so impressed at your candor and authenticity of being willing to acknowledge your own challenges in your marriage. That just seems to me to add so much credibility to somebody that's talking about marriage challenges and issues. Because I hate it when people try to be paragons of mental health and perfect marriages just because they're giving advice on marriage, because that's just simply not the truth. Everybody goes through ups and downs.
Absolutely.
I just love that y'all are honest enough to talk about that.
Well, that's the hallmark of our marriage ministry,
Yeah.
because we don't believe that people will believe what we're saying unless we're authentic. And everybody has problems, every single person. And being an expert does not give you some kind of pass on problems.
Absolutely not.
So
Now,
we,
Pepper, you say that you've never really considered divorce, but quarantine has made you think twice about it, right?
well, it's been nipping at our heels, I'll say that.
Oh, well, Pepper and Pearson, Philip told me a little of your story. And I just have to say, I'm no expert as the two of you are, but when you said authenticity, that is such a touchstone of marriage, I believe. And so I totally understand what you're saying about a couple of things. Marriage, there's not a perfect marriage. And I really am uncomfortable when someone tries to say that we have a perfect marriage. No. To me, marriage is 24/7, every day that you're married. So I completely understand how you could say that something can happen on a given day and you would actually consider the word divorce. And I'm sorry to hear that. I really am.
Well, Pepper, let me start with you.
Well,
What's your biggest issue right now?
I don't know where to begin, but it's the tension created by this enforced isolation that it's almost like in Vietnam, they have these fields that they haven't discovered all the landmines in, and so you have to walk gingerly. Well, that's how I feel sometimes. Like if I step on the landmine of Pearson's emotions, I'd say 95% of the time, he's a very congenial, easygoing, laid-back type person. But if I step on that landmine and it's been exacerbated by the fact that we're in this isolation, this, I don't know what you call it, almost like a pressure cooker environment, that I'm afraid that he's going to provoke me to the point where that's what I've been considering, that I just can't, because of my age especially. And, you're always concerned about health issues as you're aging. The stress of him bubbling up and he starts yelling at me sometimes. And it's rare, but it's often enough. And when he does it, it's done in a very embarrassing, like out in public situation, such that it just causes me to feel totally embarrassed and belittled and diminished. And
but I think something that should be brought up is my wife is a very controlling person.
Well, I know that, and I've acknowledged that I'm controlling. I know that.
Acknowledgement is not the same.
I know that, and that's one of my questions to Dr. Phil. I'm hoping he can help me understand how. I mean, I'm the one's taking this coronavirus situation more seriously than he is. And I just don't want us to get sick. And I don't know how to control the situation and not be controlling at the same time. I mean, I have to make sure that the food that we bring in the house is safe and that we don't bring germs in the house. So I have this whole protocol for bringing our groceries. Bringing our groceries in the house. I have this whole protocol for that. And he gets annoyed, that he doesn't really understand the importance of it.
Well, I don't think that's fair to say I get annoyed. I used to get annoyed, but now I understand the gravity of the situation.
You understand more
and
now.
I help you put the groceries and wipe them off and everything.
You do help me. I'm not saying he doesn't help me. I'm saying it's the attitude. And then when you're in this controlled environment, I never had to have my groceries delivered before, first of all. I always, enjoy going shopping for my own food. I never had to go through all this protocol of I have to, when they come, I have to wait till they leave, then I got to spray outside, and I got to spray all the bags, and then I got to spray each item in the bag, and then I bring it in the house, and he's supposed to be there for me to hand it to, and then he's supposed to put it in the sink and then wash it off and then dry it. I'm talking about each item in the grocery bag. We're going through this, and it takes a lot of time.
Okay, well, take a breath for a minute. You got to take a breath. You can't just talk nonstop. Pearson, do you take this serious?
Yes, I do now. I didn't at the beginning because as I have a deep distrust for the press, And so they were bringing these things out, and everything has been so it's extra lately, and everything is so blown out of proportion. So I didn't sort of take that too seriously. But then when I saw what was happening in South Korea and Italy, then I began to take it seriously. And
Yeah, but not serious enough.
Now, listen, we got to take a break. And Robin says she hears you 100%, Pepper. So I'm going to let her respond when we come back in a minute. But you guys are raising an issue that is really pervasive throughout the United States right now. So listen, if you're feeling the pressure like Pepper and Pearson, if you don't see things exactly the same way, don't go anywhere because, well, first of all, you can't. I mean, you're stuck at home. So we've got a captive audience. And secondly, we do have some advice that could dramatically improve their self-quarantine experience and yours as well. We'll be right back. I'm having a conversation with Pepper and her husband, Pearson. Robin is here to discuss this with us. And Pepper and Pearson say that they're being self-quarantined due to coronavirus, and it has put a lot of pressure on their 42-year marriage. And let's face it, they're not alone. We're hearing a lot of this from around the country. China, who's ahead by 2 or 3 months, is seeing a real spike in divorce activity. So I'm wanting to make sure that doesn't happen here in the United States. So we're talking about how to decompress the pressure cooker. Now, Pearson, Pepper, one of the things you guys are really having some frustration about is you have seen this from a different point of view in that, Pearson, you didn't take it quite as seriously as Pepper did. And now
That's
you're
right.
a little bit on the same page. But Robin, you said you totally feel Pepper when she's saying what she was saying.
Yes, Pepper. I feel so many of the things that you just said. So I won't go into everything, but there are a few things that really touched my heart. When you apologize for being a controller, I wanted to say, no, don't apologize for being a controller because I'm somewhat of a controller as well. I'll just admit it. I'm a controller. And this is probably one of the times I believe that you should be a controller. This is something that none of us have ever gone through, this pandemic, this horrible virus. And so, yes, just celebrate being a controller and being in control of your environment, of your health, and the health of your husband, Pearson. So celebrate being a controller and stand firm on that because that's what I'm doing. I really believe in isolation in this quarantine and all of the rules. And Pearson, you may believe that you cannot trust all of the news, but everything they're all saying, though, is for our health and for our safety. So celebrate the control factor in your personality. And then also, everything that you said, I kept thinking of a quote that I say a lot of the times. If you really love me, don't entertain my enemies. And the way I relate to that here is you see this virus and you see the other people he's going up to, he's entertaining when he goes out to visit your enemies. And Pearson, if you could just think of it that way, that every time you just forget about her feelings when you allow someone in your home or you go to someone else's home or you even interact with anyone, you're bringing her concerns and her worries back to her without even thinking of her. That's the way I'm feeling for you, Pepper. And I just hope that helps a little bit.
That's awesome. That's an awesome perspective. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
That helps me too, Rob.
Thank you.
And all of us, the 4 of us here, are in the age group that is higher risk
So
if something does happen. The risk-reward ratio is just not worth it. The ratio just doesn't work out. And, you know, it really gets down to acknowledging the situation very specifically, where the 2 of you can sit down and say, look, we don't have to think exactly the same way, but we do need to acknowledge that we both want the same thing. We both want to come through this as healthy and happy as we possibly can. And that means physically and emotionally. You don't want to come through this where at the end of it, you have resentment towards one another because
Right.
you're blaming Pepper or Pearson for this pandemic that we're in and all the fallout that comes from it. We're victims of this, not perpetrators. You two are in this together. And even though you may not react to it exactly the same, you do recognize that both of you are being victimized here. You're not perpetrators, so you should really have each other's back on this, even if you do it a little bit differently.
It's so true.
Yes, yes. I've come to that conclusion belatedly, but I now take it pretty seriously, and so I've sort of changed my tune.
But
Yeah.
the problem is, how do we deal with this?
Well, and one of the things that, and you guys probably know this, and I suspect you probably teach it as well, but one of the things that I really recommend is when you guys talk about this, use I statements instead of you statements. In other words, Pearson, instead of saying to Pepper, you are controlling, you are wanting me to do this, instead you can say, I feel this way. I feel like I'm being controlled or trapped. I own my feelings. So you can say how you feel, not how she's behaving. If you can use I statements instead of you statements, then you're not violating one of Gottman's 4 horsemen that really seal the fate of a marriage. You're not being critical. You're not showing contempt. You're not being defensive, and you're not stonewalling. You actually, what you're doing is just simply saying, look, here's how I feel. This is how I react to this sort of thing. And if you do that, you're going to allow him to have feelings, and Pearson, you're going to feel the right to express those things. And you've also got to have a sense of humor here. I mean, you guys seem to me like you're an awful lot of fun. And, when we take the humor out of things, then chemicals in our brains like dopamine and oxytocin go away, and we need those to lift our mood, to make us feel better. So you've got to get back to where you can laugh some and have a good time. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong by being concerned, but at the same time, when you are safe and when you are home, you gotta have some fun, and you gotta have a sense of humor and laugh about this as well, because this could be a long haul. This could go on for a while.
Pepper, play some games. As a controller, I love to win at games in a fun way. So I agree with Phil.
Yeah, I can't find anything I can beat her at. But all right, listen, I've got to talk to Pepper and Pearson about how to fight fair if they do fight, so viewers at home can learn that as well. We'll be right back. I want you all to stay as healthy as possible during this pandemic, and of course, that includes your mental health. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about tricks to retrain your brain during times of great stress. I'll be giving you some important tips on how to deal with major anxiety and worry. That's tomorrow. How do you best communicate under quarantine? Pepper and Pearson are retired attorneys who spent their careers arguing tough cases, but say nothing prepared them for the biggest threat to their marriage, and that's arguing while staying home to avoid catching COVID-19, the coronavirus. So we're talking to Pepper and Pearson today. Robin is joining me because we're doing the same thing everybody else is doing.
That's right.
We're living in this
Just the two of us.
self-isolation. How do you think we're doing?
I think we're doing very well.
Yeah, I
Really?
think so too.
Mhm.
And Pepper and Pearson are really interesting because they conduct a marriage ministry. They're writing a book on this. They've been doing this ministry for 30 years, and they're absolutely a delightful couple. And I want to talk to you guys, Pepper and Pearson, about rules of fighting fair, because I know you guys, you teach a lot of this, and so I'm going to use you as teaching tools here. Because people do have disagreements and they fight fair. And so I've kind of made rules up for this. And I want to give you guys a test and see if you do each of these things or not. And number one is when you do fight, I always tell people, because other people can be around, family or friends, is to take it private and keep it private. Do you guys do that when you have a disagreement? Do you take it off to the side? Do you keep it away from family, friends.
That's one of the big problems, Dr. Phil and Robin. I keep it private. Pearson does not care whether or not it's private or not.
Well, I think what we have is a disagreement about her keeping it private, because the things that she thinks shouldn't bother me do bother me, and so she thinks she's keeping it private, but to me it's public, and so but she's not recognizing
But
that.
I'm saying when you start yelling at me, you don't care who's around. You did it out in the middle of the street in the public. In
Okay,
front
so
of
that's how he embarrasses you sometimes.
Yeah.
He clumps up with other people.
Yes. And
I'm going
he
to
did
give you a bad mark on that, Pearson, because you don't want to do that. You get
Right.
a mark on that. All right, number 2 is keep it relevant. And that means that when you're talking about something, you got to keep it relevant to what's happening right then. You can't pull something up from 6 weeks ago or 6 months ago, right?
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. That's
How,
a good one.
how are you doing keeping it in the here and now?
We pretty much keep things on track in terms of keeping it relevant. And
but you oftentimes bring up, I feel like I'm doing too much finger pointing. You oftentimes bring up something I did. You'll tell me about something I did like 2 weeks ago and try to bring it into the current situation. And I always
only if it's relevant. Only if it's relevant.
Okay, but it's not in the here and now. So I'm going to give you a bad mark on that one too. You're admitting, you're confessing some things here, Pearson. All right, number 3 is you got to keep it real. And that means you've got to be honest about your feelings at the time. You can't say nothing when it's something. You can't bring in something that doesn't have anything to do with the issue. People argue about topics, but they don't talk about issues. You got to keep it real and deal with what's actually going on, not some substitute topic that's safer. How do you guys do on that front?
But that's where I think that Pepper has a problem, because
In regards to-
because when I ask her what's wrong, she'll say nothing,
Oh yeah.
and she'll
something like that.
expect me to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah.
And I
All right,
can't-
Robin has a confession to make here. This will
Okay.
help you out, Pearson.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, I used to do that. I don't do that anymore.
All right, that's true. She used to
Thank
do
you.
that. She used to say nothing, which meant lots, and it's you, buddy.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't
heard
learned.
That right?
Yeah, I haven't learned that yet. That's not a good thing. I get a bad mark there. I definitely get a bad mark there because I will say nothing because Robin, especially, she can understand. Don't you think oftentimes they should know what's wrong?
Oh, yes.
Okay, they should know what's wrong.
Pearson,
They've done
you
something.
come on.
They're going to say what's wrong. You know?
But
have
we
to
don't
ask.
have a clue.
We can't read their minds, Pearson.
Right.
They got to tell us.
Hey, we don't have a clue.
That's
And
your
the other
go-to
thing,
answer.
All right,
Yeah.
more of this list. All right, more of this list when we come back. This has turned out to be the guys against the girls here, but we're 2-1 behind, Pearson. We'll be right back. Well, we're back with Pepper and her husband, Pearson, and Robin and I are having a conversation with them about how to manage differences when you're self-quarantining at home and seeing each other 24/7. Now, we're talking about how to resolve differences, which means how to fight and fight fair. We've talked about some of the things already. And number 4 is you have to avoid character assassination. And that means if you're going to get into a disagreement, you've got to keep it on topic, on issue, and not get into assassinating each other's character with personal attacks. Pearson, Pepper, how do you score yourselves on this one?
I don't think we do badly on that in that regard. I try very hard to not attack Pearson's character because I feel like that's disrespectful, and I work hard at not disrespecting him because I know that's a big deal for him to be respected. So
yeah, I think we one of the things you do is when we do go off and say something that's conclusory as opposed to descriptive, then we were able to catch each other and say, that was not
All right, so you
right.
get good marks there then. Number 5 is you have to remain task oriented. You're trying to solve a problem, right? And you guys stay on task in terms of solving the problem.
Yes.
You're both good marks.
Do we
Do we remain on task?
Yes.
Do we rate it? Yeah, we remain on task. One of the things that we do, we try to pray our way through things. I don't know about your audience, but we're Christians, and we believe that one of the ways that we are able to manage stress and manage argument is to surrender our wills and our hearts to the Lord, so that the Lord then can talk to us and love us through each other, through each other. And so,
Yeah, but sometimes we get where we won't even pray together.
well, that's true.
I'll ask you to pray with me, and then you'll not want to pray.
Well, that
Or
goes
vice versa. I have done it too.
that goes to number 6, and that is to allow your partner to retreat with dignity. And that's really important, right?
So
We're
important.
very good about that, right?
Yes.
But
yes.
you gotta, even if you're right, you gotta allow your partner to retreat with dignity. You gotta be a gracious winner, just as you do a gracious loser if you're wrong about something. Are you guys gracious when you get down to it?
I think my problem there might be that I'm not want. He'll apologize, and I'll walk around not really wanting to accept his apology because I'm so hurt. And I think maybe that's not a good thing to do.
Yeah. Well, number 7 is to be proportional in your intensity. Do you guys do that? I mean, do you not kill a mosquito with a shotgun? You don't overreact. Can you be proportional in how much you react to things?
Well, I think, Pearson, you want to address that? Because, yeah, I think he needs to address that, to admit.
Well, yeah. A lot of times I go overboard, and yeah, I get excited about and emotional about certain things, because the whole issue of respect. Sometimes I think that she doesn't really see what I'm seeing, and she doesn't respect my issues.
He'll just go off.
And
It's
so,
like a pressure cooker. The top, it just blows off.
right.
What do you
That
think,
happens.
Pearson, about that? Give him some advice about keeping his cool here.
Well, one thing that really works for us is to not just jump to a conclusion on how the other feels or what the other is thinking. And I feel like maybe you both maybe do that, Pearson maybe more. And what works for us is to keep acknowledging, well, my perception of what you just said is this. My perception of this entire conversation is this. And not just throw out that, here's what you said, here's what you're thinking. That really frustrates me with Philip, and when he tries to tell me what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling, because it's impossible. He's brilliant, yes. It's impossible, in my opinion. My perception is it's impossible for him to really, truly know what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling.
Boy, well, I confess to that. That's for absolute sure. All right, more about all of this living together in harmony while we're isolated when we come back. Well, we're back, and Robin and I take self-isolation very seriously. We take social distancing very seriously. We take keeping our hands washed and doing all the things that we need to do to stay healthy very seriously. And we're having a conversation with Pepper and Pearson, a delightful couple that have been married 42 years. We've been married 43, so we have a lot in common, about how to stay harmonious during self-isolation. And Pepper, Pearson, we just have a few minutes left. I just wanted to see if either of you have a specific question that Robin and I could answer about anything that we haven't talked about so far. I think you guys have been very open and candid, and I think have talked about a lot of things that are going to help people around the country. I just wanted to see if you had a question you wanted to ask before we wrapped up here.
Well, I think Robin has very aptly addressed my question of how to control this situation without being controlling. And she's saying basically to embrace that aspect of my nature, particularly at this time when it's so needed. And that gives me a totally different perspective on things. And if she wants to elaborate upon that any further, but I think that has pretty much, that's my main concern. I want to control this situation, but I don't want to be this controlling spirit over my husband such that it causes him to feel provoked at the slightest thing.
You know, Pearson, I have to say, my attitude about this, in all the time that Robin and I have been together, we've been married 43 and together almost 47 years, has always been kind of the home is her dominion. And, you know, she kind of sets the tone and the rules and the guidelines. And I always said early on, I'll make the living and you make the living worthwhile. And
There you go.
she's done a fabulous job of raising the children and creating a warm and comfortable home. And when she says, you know, we're going to kind of do this way, I kind of pony up and do what I need to do because she doesn't.
I like that.
What am I going to do? Fix it?
Love it.
I'm not going to fix it. I just got to go along with it. So maybe we should try to just shut up and do what we're told when it comes to how to behave around this.
Love it.
Right now, we're in their zone, right?
Oh, that's right. That's absolutely correct.
He hasn't gotten to where you are, Dr. Phil.
Well, no, I haven't. No, I haven't. But I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress.
And I just want to say one short thing about being in control. And it's very different than controlling everyone around you in the entire situation, and everyone has to come to what you say. I just mean embrace your controlling nature in that you want to be in control of your health and Pearson's health and the environment. And I just really, truly believe that there's nothing wrong with that. I support that. And so don't stop that. Feel powerful and in control because you're doing what it takes to be healthy and safe.
Listen, you and I need to just acknowledge we both married way over our heads. We
Amen, brother.
just need to be glad we did. Guys, we're out of time. Thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
truth
you.
with us. I think it's touched a lot of lives today. I'm proud to meet both of you. I hope to do it in person one day.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Bye,
Thank
Robin.
you so much.
Bye.
All right, next, what happens when you're quarantined with your partner and run out of things to say? I can't imagine, but we'll talk about that next. Well, we're back, and we've been talking about living together in isolation. And it's a difficult thing to do because you're kind of trapped. You don't get to do a lot of the activities and hobbies that you've had before. Maria posted this question on Facebook. My boyfriend and I have run out of things to say to each other, and it's day 10 of self-isolation, which could go on for a long time. Does that mean we're incompatible? No, it doesn't mean you're incompatible. It just means you're learning how to be together in a way that you haven't been before. And I think it's really important to do a couple of things. Think back to why you got together to begin with. What was it that attracted you to each other? What did you really love about each other? What was intriguing about each other? And do this. Finish each day by making a list of 20 blessings that you think really grace your life and share those with each other. I promise you that will really spark a lot of conversation. And you had an idea as well.
Yes, I think that I'd love to play games. And I have recently found a game that I love. And it's called We're Not Really Strangers. And multi-level game, very much fun, very, very smart game. You should get online, order that, and play that game. You will love it. You can play it over and over.
And all kinds of games are fun.
Yes,
Whatever. We
yes.
play cards, we play Scrabble, we play all
Yahtzee.
kinds of things. And you can play games online with your friends too.
Yes.
Just get on, play charades, do
Yes.
anything. If you get on FaceTime, whatever, you can do all sorts of things.
Fun.
Listen, we talked to Pepper and Pearson today. Really had an interesting conversation. I want to thank them for talking to me. For more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. Don't forget to check me out on any of my social media outlets, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And while you're staying indoors, don't forget to listen to podcasts. You can find me at Fill in the Blanks. You can find Robin on Give 'Em Your Name.
I've got a secret.
I've got a secret. She's always got her hands up when she's saying it. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. The question on everyone's mind as they social distance, physical distance, and continue to shelter in place is, what if I get coronavirus or my loved ones do? How will I know? How will I know it's not the flu or a cold or something else? What do I have to do to get my hands on a test? And when is it time to actually get one? It's causing a lot of people stress, anxiety, fear, because we still don't know exactly what to be looking for or what to expect. And the unknown is really causing a lot of people discomfort. Most people also don't know the first thing they should do if they suspect they have the virus, except stay away from everyone else. You don't want to go to a doctor or hospital because if you don't have it, you could get it when you walk into a waiting room where somebody does have it. And if you do, you don't want to expose it to people that are there that don't know you have it. And so it's just a problem. Do you go? Do you not go? What do you do? It's harder because people just don't know what it's like to experience this. Why? Because it's new. That's why it's such a problem. We don't have any immunities built up to it because this is a new strain. And now new reports have just come out that there are widely varying symptoms that we're still learning about. Now, two new ones that have just come out that nobody had talked about before is loss of smell, loss of taste, and red eyes. Now, bottom line, you may have the virus even if you don't have the symptoms. The CDC says you may have coronavirus and should isolate yourselves if you exhibit signs of these symptoms. They may appear 2 to 14 days after exposure based on the incubation period of the MERS-CoV virus. Fever, cough, shortness of breath. If you develop emergency warning signs of COVID-19, get medical attention immediately. Now, emergency warning signs include trouble breathing, persistent pain or pressure in the chest, new confusion or inability to arouse, bluish lips or face. But they do note that this list is not all inclusive. Now, that means there could be other signs. Now, today I'm talking to 3 people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. Their symptoms are very different from each other. I mean, one had this, another had this, another had that. And they're different from what is on the list. But yet they've all been diagnosed with COVID-19. We're going to also talk about how to deal with the fear and anxiety people who suspect they have this virus are going through regarding how contagious they are and their fear of infecting loved ones or others. But first, I want you to meet Megan Usich. Now, she is a nurse in San Diego and says this virus is revealing cracks in our healthcare system that have been going on for a really long time. Now, Megan is awaiting results of her coronavirus test after becoming incredibly sick with chest pain and symptoms she says are way worse than the flu. So, Megan, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing a lot better. Thank you.
I'm so glad to hear that. Now, this is a situation that you're involved in from 2 standpoints. One is you've been, you think, infected with the virus and have had the symptoms, but you're also in the healthcare system, and that's what you're really wanting to focus on and talk about and draw attention to, so hopefully we can make some changes, right?
Yeah, that's right. Last week was a pretty tough week, both just as a human going through this along with everyone else and the fear of the unknown that comes with that.
as someone getting sick with whatever at a really tough time during a pandemic, and as a nurse being really worried about going to work and infecting patients or infecting loved ones and not having the proper equipment we need to prevent that.
When you first think you were infected, did you get a test and how did it come back?
So thinking back 2 weeks ago, I was having a really odd tightness in my chest. It felt like I had gone for a really hard run and your lungs are burning when it's cold. And I thought that's kind of odd. It'll go away. And by the end of the week, it hadn't subsided. In the back of every healthcare provider's mind, you're like, eesh, could I have potentially been infected? And then by Monday, I was, fever, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle aches, feeling like I was just hit by a truck. And so I reached out. I tried to get testing. And unfortunately, our screening protocols, as you said, right now are for fever, cough, shortness of breath. So people that are having these GI symptoms, we could be missing a big group that are trying to reach out that need testing. I advocated for myself and pushed it at another facility. I told them that I had a questionable exposure, which is now known. I told them I was worried about my patients and going to work and going to clinicals for school that week. And luckily they were able to test me, but we are now 9 days out waiting for results.
It's been 9 days and you don't have results?
No, it's been 9 days. 9 days. And I know that.
How do you feel about that for patients in general? Not just yourself, but for patients in general.
Awful. I mean, for so many reasons. A, for patients that aren't feeling well and they need to be in touch with their provider, they need to know, is this COVID or is this something else? If COVID wasn't around and you called symptomatic, your provider would have you come in and be checked out, maybe lab work, maybe diagnostic testing. But right now we're holding people back because we have to. So that's scary for patients. And 9 days, I mean, if we have that kind of turnaround time, even in the hospital system, I think it's quicker, but we're going to have rule out cases that we need to know now, do they have it or not? Because we're using PPE on all of those patients that we're ruling out. Precious PPE that we need right now.
What does the testing entail? When you get tested, are they taking a swab from deep inside the throat or in the nose and then taking it to a lab? How does that work?
Good question. So for me personally, I had something called nasopharynx. So it went deep into the nose, very, very uncomfortable. But there seems to be a disconnect of how people are screened. There's sputum cultures, which requires you to have a productive enough cough that you can cough up sputum. Again, not ideal for someone with GI symptoms. There's question about urine and stool samples. I think that would only be happening in a hospital setting right now. And then there's the nasopharynx, which is the swab that I received.
Right. When they get the test, it goes it's sealed up and sent to a lab, and then the lab has to process it, right?
Right.
And that's what's taken 9 days.
Yeah. So initially I was told when I got tested, they said 24 to 48 hours. They have called me every day to check on me, which has been amazing. A couple days in, they said, you know what, it's looking more like 6 days. By the 5-day mark, they said, your test was sent to a facility in Utah. Utah had an earthquake and the facility was impacted by that.
What else could go wrong, right? We have to take a break, and I want to hear some more about this. Coming up, we're going to talk about the mental struggle healthcare professionals are facing. It's not just the demands, they also have feelings about their interaction with patients. Could they get it? Could they give it? How does that impact everyone? Megan says that we need to protect those who are saving lives. We're going to talk about that next. We're back with Megan. She is a nurse who has been on the front lines, and she recently became very ill herself. So she has experienced this virus from both sides, as someone who is potentially positive and as someone treating patients and seeing all the cracks in the system. And it can be very frustrating from both sides. Megan, it's difficult for me, frustrating for you trying to help people, and then also it's frustrating for you as a patient, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Nurses always put patients first. It's just part of what we do as people. people. And so, more so than even being worried about our own safety, we're truly worried about our patients' safety. And if we don't know if we're infected and we're told to go to work and take care of patients, let's remember most patients in our hospital system don't have COVID right now. They have heart attacks, stroke, diabetes, hypertension, the things that we worry about for people that get COVID. And how can we protect them if we're not protected ourselves? And that's the moral dilemma that every provider is feeling right now. And
Right.
it goes against every ethical code that we've ever had in practice.
So if you spend 9 days not knowing if you have it, and days before that, before you were even tested, you could have unknowingly been interacting with cardiopulmonary patients and infecting them, not knowing you're carrying the virus.
Absolutely. And that was my concern when I called on Monday of last week. And I said, I'm worried about patients. I'm going to see a lot of patients, a lot of healthcare providers through the week. And in the back of my mind, I thought about the week prior when I had that chest tightness and thinking to myself, my gosh, I was in touch with patients all week long. Did I harm anyone? Was I infected? Am I infected? And I've talked to other providers that are positive and they feel the same amount of shame. And it's really hard because it's something that's so out of our control right now. But it's really, really difficult to kind of grasp.
Well, I heard the story of a nurse in Italy that tested positive and actually committed suicide, reportedly from the guilt she felt for having possibly infecting a whole lot of others.
Yeah, it's real. I mean, I can tell you last week when I got sick and when the country started shutting down and dealing with the unknown of what I have going on, dealing with the kind of anticipatory grief that healthcare providers are feeling of this cloud coming over them, the mental health struggles become real. And I reached out to a lot of my colleagues, and we don't like to talk about it. We don't like to say that we're not well or that we're scared, and we are. We really are.
And you're in isolation now?
So I am home in self-quarantine. I was told last Monday to go home and self-isolate away from my husband, away from my animal. And I did that. I said, yes, that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't last very long. I mean, the mental health struggles that come from self-isolation alone, on top of being sick, on top of a pandemic, are real. And I'm not saying that other people shouldn't do that, but it was a discussion between me and my husband that what was best for us and for my health was to be together. And so that's what we decided to do. So the two of us are self-quarantined in the house right now.
Okay. And do you feel like you're on the mend at this point?
Yeah, I was talking to a friend who's also similar symptoms to me, denied testing, and he said every day has been a little bit better for him. I feel like I've had some good days and some bad days. Today I feel a lot better. I just feel wiped out. I feel like, I run through the differentials in my mind. I'm like, all right, is this mono? Do I have gastroenteritis? Like, what are my other options if this comes back negative? So, I still have some low-grade fevers. I have a lot of malaise and some nausea, but I feel I'm getting better.
Are you concerned that you may infect your husband?
Of course I am. That's why I wanted so badly to self-isolate to protect him. And it's funny because he was like, Megan, if you have it, I have it too, probably. He works from home, so it makes it a little bit more difficult, but he stays upstairs. I stay downstairs. I walk around with hospital cavi wipes and gloves and just am constantly cleaning everything, checking in on him. If I hear him cough, I'm like, are you okay? And he says he's fine. He feels fine.
Well, I certainly wish the best for both of you. And I really appreciate you giving us some insight to both sides, caregiving and being a patient as well. Coming up, a father and son both diagnosed with coronavirus that landed one of them in the hospital. That's next. Zach tested positive for COVID-19 one day after his father was diagnosed with the virus. Just one day. He is isolated at home, but his father was hospitalized and has just been released. Now, Zach, I understand that your father is one day or just today out of the hospital. So how is he doing now?
Oh, he's doing very, very good now, doctor. Thank you for asking. Since he's gotten back, his symptoms have been getting better by the day. He could breathe, he
Right.
could do manual activity, so it's a lot better.
All right. And how old is your dad?
He is 53,
Okay.
problems of his own, so it was big worries when he been admitted to the hospital.
Yeah. What were his underlying conditions?
Well, he has a leaky valve in his heart, and from working his whole life in construction, he has lung problems, which was their main issue because the virus attacks the lungs and the respiratory system.
Right.
But he was
Did-
able to fight out of that.
Did they treat the two of you any differently?
From the doctor's office, no, it was pretty much the same standard procedure. We had went in, we had shown symptoms, so they had immediately given us gloves, masks, separated us, and then took him one by one. They brought him in, and I had went the next day to get myself tested, which was the same thing that had happened the night before with my father.
And do you guys have an idea of where you contracted this? How you were exposed to it? Do you know where it happened?
My father, he worked with a lot of different people, so he may have potentially have caught it from one of the people that he meets throughout his day. But however, for me, I had contracted it through my father. Once he had fallen ill, I had started staying home to help my mother take care of him. And I think that exposure has brought the virus onto me.
Yeah, probably so. So people are really curious because it is taking different tracks with folks. Describe your symptoms. What did it start with? What was the flow? What were your symptoms?
So at first, it just started with a regular headache, which I had thought nothing of. And then the following morning, I had woken up with 103 fever, which stayed consistent for the entire day. So that's when me and my family started to get a little worried. And then after that, the fever went away, but fatigue, nausea, aches came along, a wet cough, and a lot of burning through my nose stayed consistent for the past 2 weeks now.
Uh-huh.
Besides
Okay.
from
And-
that, my father he had a constant fever throughout the week.
Right. And how did this compare to other illnesses that you've had in terms of severity? I mean, I assume you've had the flu and colds and things like that. How did it compare?
It was more intense on my body. You know, a lot of people think since this virus is more lethal for older people, that it's not as effective to us younger folk. But it was very taxing on my body. I wasn't able to do a lot of manual labor or anything like that. And compared to the flu, it had run me down a lot more. I wasn't able to get up fast. I had completely lost my appetite. Just wasn't feeling well.
And what would you say to young people that are saying, hey, I'm young, no big deal. I'm going to go along with my life, go to spring break or whatever. What do you say to the young people that maybe aren't taking this quite as seriously?
That it seriously is not a joke. You know, we think we're tough and we could take on the world, but at the end of the day, it isn't about us. If I go out and I had contracted the virus unknowingly, I then bring it back to my elderly family, my parents, my siblings, anybody else in the house, which is the biggest issue because I wasn't worried about me at all the entire time in the past 2 weeks. I was more concerned about my father's health, my mother's health, my grandmother, the people that you don't think about initially. Everyone wants to go out, everyone wants to have fun for spring break, but unfortunately, these are times that are different from the past spring breaks that we've experienced, you know? Can't really be going out and around. Got to be safe, got to be precautious, which a lot of
Right.
people are throwing that out the window.
Of course. And was there anything treatment-wise that worked better for you than anything else?
The only thing I was really told to by my healthcare provider was to basically treat it as the flu. So I had relaxed a lot, of course, and kept up on fluids. That was the main problem for me, was staying hydrated. I noticed when I was less hydrated, my symptoms were more severe and a little painful to deal with. So a very important thing to do is to stay hydrated and keep up your fluids.
So you feel like you and your dad both are coming out the other end of the tunnel now?
Now I would say, yeah, we're at the tail end of it, at least for me. He, I think, will take a little longer to recover, but for me, for the past few days, I have been feeling a lot better, a lot less severe symptoms, such as like nausea. I'm not as fatigued anymore.
Well, this has been very helpful for you to share all of this with us, and thank you so much. And please give my best to your dad and tell him that we're certainly wishing him the best as well. And thank you for sharing all of this.
Of course, doctor. Thank you for having me on. I hope you and your family are all well as well.
You bet. Thank you. Coming up, an Air Force veteran says coronavirus is nothing like she expected. She says it feels like an ice pick stabbing her body all over. We'll talk to her about her experience next. Tomorrow, what happens to your mind when you are suddenly forced into self-isolation? What should you do all day when you are all alone? How can you keep from feeling lethargic and depressed? And what to do if your depression has crossed into dangerous and even suicidal thinking? I'll be answering those questions and more tomorrow. Lisa says she doesn't know how or when she got the coronavirus, but she says it feels worse than any flu she's ever had in her entire life. And she's going to join us from isolation in Colorado. Lisa, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, I really am interested in hearing about the course of this with you because people are so curious that people are experiencing different things when they get this infection. Now, this started with you on March 8th, right?
No, it actually originally started on February 18th after we came home from a traveling trip.
Okay, February 18th?
February 18th, I went to a medical conference over in Hawaii, and we were there for 3 weeks. We set out on the trip on February 2nd. On February 18th is when I started having symptoms. I started just having a mild runny nose and a little sneezes, and then my back, my shoulder started hurting and across my shoulder blades, and that's it. But we were carrying backpacks, so I thought maybe it was because we were just run down. We were hiking.
But you started your quarantine in your house on March 8th then.
So my symptoms, I started the quarantine on March 8th. That's when I got tested at the hospital.
You see.
And on March 11th, I got my results back that they were positive.
Okay, now how many tests did you have before you found out for sure that you had the COVID-19?
So I just had one test on March 8th. It came back positive on March 11th, and I just had a retest on March 23rd. I'm a healthcare provider, so I am trying to follow the CDC guidelines to make sure that I don't go back to work and I'm not a carrier. So I want to have 2 negative tests 24 hours apart.
Okay, so when you had the test on the 23rd, how did it come out?
I still do not have the results. They said it was going to be approximately 4 to 6 days before I receive results back.
You would think they would put yours at the top of the stack since you're a healthcare provider and they need you to get back in the saddle, right?
You would think that, but I don't think that they're giving any preferential treatment right now. I think what they're doing is they're taking all the tests, and they're sending them off in batches at this time. So they go to the local lab couriers and then they batch them, and then you get your results back. I have a friend that's a nurse right now that had testing almost 12 days ago, and she still doesn't have her results back, and she works at a hospital on the Front Range in Denver.
Wow, that just doesn't seem to make common sense. But okay, so you started feeling your symptoms around the 18th of February. What did you experience at its worst from that point forward? How bad did this get for you?
So it got to the point where on March 8th, March 1st, I had the fever, March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Once I had the fever, I went to my clinic and I got an influenza test for myself just to rule that out. That was negative, influenza A and B. On March 2nd, I called the CDC and I called the local health department and I asked them, I said, I've been traveling for 3 weeks. I have a fever. Could I possibly have COVID? And they said that I didn't meet criteria for testing. So I just basically laid low with my husband in the house the rest of the week. On March 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th is when I felt, every time I stood up, I just felt like I wanted to collapse. I felt diaphoretic. I felt sweaty. My fever was off and on. I was having almost like when you go outside and you breathe in, I had like it felt really hot when I took a deep breath. And then I'd have these sharp shooting pains throughout my entire body. At times I would scream and my husband said, what's going on? And I said, it just felt like somebody stabbed me with a pin or like an ice pick and maybe like my thigh or in my chest somewhere. And then I started having shortness of breath. I started having severe joint pain, muscle aches. And on March 8th, I finally started having lower pain in my bilateral, in my lobes of my rib area. So that's when I asked him, I just said, I don't feel good. I don't feel right. Can you please take me to the hospital? So he took me into the hospital. When I was at the hospital, they did a full workup on me. They did influenza A and B. That was negative. They did a chest x-ray and it showed that I had bilateral lobe pneumonia. They also did a CBC and a CMP. My white count was low. They gave me some IV fluids and some Toradol just because I was having so much pain. And then they did the COVID-19 test on me. After the COVID-19 test, they sent me out the door and told me to wait for results, but to stay in isolation. So I've basically been in isolation since March 8th.
Wow. Has your husband shown any signs at all, any symptoms?
My husband, I feel like he had a very, very mild case of it. We both had fevers on March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And then he just had a little diarrhea and it passed through him. He hasn't been sick and he's been with me since they let him out of isolation 14 days later. So he's been off of isolation since.
Okay. Well, Lisa, I can't tell you how helpful it is, particularly you're a very good historian. You tell you're a healthcare professional, you're a very good historian in tracking this for us. And it's so helpful for people to hear what your experience has been through this. And I'm still shaking my head that they're making you wait on this test. But thank you so much for sharing this information for people to hear so they know if they're experiencing any of what you're going through, they'll maybe get faster action. Hopefully the testing is coming more quickly now than it was when you were trying to get it to begin with.
I hope so. I think the key is point of care testing and rapid testing in the clinics and at the hospitals, because then we can find out in less than an hour and, just send people home.
Well, thank you for sharing and God bless you for what you do. Keep staying on that front line for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You
Stay
bet.
safe.
I will. The 25-year-old Auburn University graduate who contracted COVID-19 while traveling to a bachelor party over spring break made headlines by warning young people to stay inside. He's going to join the conversation next. Joining us is JT. He believes he contracted coronavirus at the airport after traveling on a snowboarding trip to Colorado with friends. He was the only one in the group to test positive, and he is now in isolation at his parents' home in Alabama. So, JT, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, you're at your parents' home, and you're isolating yourself from your mother and father, John and Laura, because they are immunocompromised, and you're really concerned to not infect them, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm isolated above the garage and just trying to avoid any kind of contact with my mom and my dad, because that's my number one concern. I feel a lot better now, so I just try to stay out of the way.
Yeah, now we'll talk about that a little more in a bit, but I want people to get a sense of what you've been through. Now, when did you travel to Colorado? This was for a bachelor party, right?
Yes, sir, it was. I left March 9th and returned the 14th. And, I was in close proximity with all my friends, with at least 10 people. And I, ate with them and was around the whole entire week, and no one tested positive for it. And then on my return back on the 14th, I felt fine. The next day, Sunday, I didn't feel anything at all. I actually met up with my parents here at my house and ate with them, and then I went on a walk with my mom downtown, and I didn't even know I had the virus. And it's funny that I think a guest said that they felt like they had went on a run for shortness of breath. Well, I actually did go on a jog. I even ran probably 3 miles on Sunday. And then the next day, I had a 102-degree fever, and I got tested as soon as I knew I had the fever because I've been traveling.
Right. Now, this happened, you went from the 9th to the 14th, and this was there was a warning out at the time. I don't think it was very big in Colorado, but did you guys consider canceling the party because of what was going on?
We did. We just didn't know how, serious it really was. I didn't know how serious it really was. If I think we wouldn't had, more information about it or just done more research, we probably wouldn't have gone. Again, I probably wouldn't have gone walking with my mom if I would have known I had the virus. So.
Well, yeah, of course. And when you did get tested, how did you get tested, and what was that like, and how long did it take to get the results?
Yeah, so I went to a local doctor's office here, and they were testing people in the parking lot, and they had stations. And I drove up with my car, and they did a throat swab, and I had my results within, the next day. I am still puzzled to know as to why, people like me are getting their results the next day, whereas health workers are having to wait 4 to 6 days for test results.
Yeah, we were just, talking to Lisa. She said she's waited days and days, and she's a healthcare worker that needs to get back to the job. And it's funny that it's so inconsistent. Now, you said you got a temperature of 102. What was the height of your symptoms? What did you experience that was the most difficult to get through?
Yeah, so the most difficult thing for me was the body aches, and I actually woke me up, from sleeping, and I would have to ice myself and stretch in the middle of the night to try to fall back to sleep. So I would say, for me, it's just the body aches. But other than that, I've been feeling quite fine past couple of days.
Well, that's good. And where are you isolating?
I'm in our spare room above the garage. So my dad kindly brings up meals to me, and I'll just sit here, read, watch TV. And I just had a job interview today, so it went pretty well.
Good. And we've started to hear just recently of people losing their sense of smell and taste temporarily. Have you experienced that at all?
Yes, sir, I have. That's failed to mention that, but yeah, I can't taste or smell anything. I don't know how long that's supposed to last, but it pretty much started as soon as I started getting a fever. I haven't been able to taste anything for at least 8 to 9 days. So, yeah.
Well, that's just kind of a new report. That's not something they were talking about to begin with, and apparently it is transient. So that's the good news. And you really want the younger generation to take this seriously, right?
Absolutely. I'm pretty healthy guy. I exercise a lot. I was snowboarding with my friends, and I never would have thought that I would contract the virus. When I got the news, I was kind of shocked. But as far as those, young people that want to go have a spring break trip and have fun, like I understand, but other people's lives are at risk, elderly people. So I'd say, stay inside. Even if you aren't infected, you could be, because I had it for a day and I didn't even know I had it. And I walked around.
No symptoms, right? So you didn't know you had it. So
yes,
parents are there. They're in another part of the house because he's in an apartment over the garage, and they're going to join the conversation and tell us what it's like for them, because they're of course worried about their child, but yet they can't go be with him and attend to him. So we'll add them to this conversation next, but they'll be in 2 different locations, even though they're at the same address. Tomorrow, I'll be talking about how to cope with isolation and depression while everyone is trying to stay informed about COVID-19. The news is causing and triggering anxiety and depression for many people. What are the signs of serious depression? How to know if you should be seeking medical help, and how are you supposed to even see a doctor if you're stuck in your house? Well, I have the answers tomorrow. But right now, I'm talking with JT, who is with us in Alabama, where he is in isolation in an apartment above his parents' garage after being tested positive for the coronavirus. His parents, Laura and John, are joining us as well. Now, they're in the house, but they're staying away from their son because they don't want to catch this, obviously. And he's concerned because he feels like both of them are kind of compromised immuno-wise, and he's not wanting to make them sick, of course. So, John, Laura, thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Phil, for having us.
So I know that we now know that JT did test positive for this. Is it difficult for you guys to stay away and not check and tend on him because you don't want to get this?
Very much so, yes. But we both know that we have to take the precautions that we've been giving to limit ourselves from seeing him and to protect ourselves and our other two boys that are upstairs.
Right. And Laura, he went on a walk with you when he was kind of asymptomatic, but probably was positive for the virus. Have you been monitoring? Have you been tested? Have you been checked at all? Are you concerned?
I am concerned. I've been taking my temperature regularly. I've been using precautions with, sanitizing my counters, washing my hands, staying away from him. I haven't felt any of the symptoms that he has had, but I am monitoring my temperature. And if I show any symptoms, I feel like I can call my doctor's office and request a test.
Right, good. And John, you served after 9/11, and so the sad fact of it is you're at risk because of your lungs for what you were exposed to then, correct?
Maybe moderately. So I'm be more concerned with Laura with her health issues being exposed to the virus. So as you mentioned, you keep JT above the garage, and I tell my friends that I throw food up the stairs to him every so often, but that's not really. I bring his food, or we set it up on the porch for him outside. And as I guess the nurse mentioned earlier, if anybody has a sniffle or a cough, we're really hyper vigilant about anything like that. So we're taking temperatures. Our other son is also quarantined with us, and a friend.
Well, you can go by and throw some meat up there at the door every once in a while and keep him at bay.
We just actually got a letter today from the Alabama Department of Public Health, which is a legal order quarantining us until April the 3rd. So we've had friends bringing us food, and we're sanitizing all of the food that comes into the house and things like that. So,
did y'all ask him not to go on the trip back on the 9th of March?
Well, we had some minor concerns, and I think to echo JT's sentiments there, it's such a rapidly evolving situation that at the time that they planned the trip, it really wasn't as prevalent as it was during the week they were out there, right? So prior to the trip, this was Saturday on the 9th of March. It was, a few cases in Washington and a few cases in New York, and everybody was saying, social distancing, but nobody was saying at that time, don't travel, don't, do things like that. And the situation evolved so rapidly that, I guess when he was out there, we were concerned. So he got back Sunday. I have an office in Denver, and I got an email from a coworker that lives in Denver that was in the ski resorts where JT was, that it was an advisory from the Department of Public Health that the virus was going around. So when JT called Monday morning to say he had a fever, I immediately went over there and took his temperature, and he got tested that same day.
Yeah, well, when you look at the frequency with which this has evolved, and you look at that weekend he was gone, it was pretty flat. And right that week when he got back, that's when the hockey stick went up. So he was right on the cusp of it. He just got caught in a bad time.
It did, especially from the Saturday to the Sunday. I mean, Saturday, a lot of people were out. He came in Saturday night. Sunday is the day that we were out. And like you said, it just spiked there on Sunday afternoon, it seemed like.
Well, we actually did. He did take the trip, and Lauren and I talked about it. We said, when he comes back, let's make sure that we don't touch. If it is, it's brief. We wash hands. We practice, what the guidelines were at the time, the social distancing. We didn't hug.
Yeah, the night he came in, I didn't hug him or anything. He got in the back seat of the car, nothing.
So we were
Listen,
practicing.
guys, I'm so glad that you've talked about this, because it's been such a great example for him to give the message he gave to young people, and y'all respecting the isolation that you're doing and the social distancing you're doing. I just wanted that message to go out to America from such a nice family like you guys. So thank you so much for joining me and giving this message. It meant a lot today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to be right back and answer one more question before we finish up. We'll be right back. I just have a minute to answer one question. Joey in North Carolina asked, what would you say was the main symptom that people should look out for? Well, one thing you don't want to look out for, there's been a rumor that if you hold your breath for 10 seconds without coughing, then you're good. And that's just been debunked. That was something that was circulating around out there, and it doesn't give you the all clear. The CDC says if you have a dry cough, if you have trouble breathing, if you have a spike in temperature, those are some of the signs that are popping up the most often. So watch for those things and realize you can be asymptomatic. So if you've been exposed, be careful about who you are around. Look, I want to thank all of my guests for joining me today. We wish everyone a full and speedy recovery, and we will pray that Laura and John stay healthy, of course. If you want more information on today's show, or you have questions about coronavirus and how you can handle this pandemic, go to drphil.com. I'm not an immunologist or an infectious disease doctor, but I am putting out the information that we're getting from reliable sources. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy, everyone. We will see you next time. So long. Today, as you can see, I am still not in my studio. I think I'm going to start calling this In the Kitchen with Dr. Phil, because I'm here at my house. My staff is also working from their homes as we're doing everything the CDC recommends to contain and help eradicate the coronavirus. So I really didn't want a crew to come in and be around each other. And so we're really sticking with the physical distancing, social distancing, whatever you want to call it, and the social isolation. So I'm working from home, and thank God for technology. As of this taping, 17 governors have issued stay-at-home orders for the people in their states, including mine, which is California, so I'm staying at home. That's over 40% of the American population. Think about that. We have shut this country down. And if you're in a state that does not have one of those orders, it's probably coming soon if you haven't imposed it upon yourself. Regardless, it's absolutely critical to listen to public officials and adhere to these new guidelines. Throw out all the politics, quit listening to them arguing back and forth, and just focus on the science. That's what I'm doing. I've been talking to immunologists and infectious disease specialists. I don't care what party they're in. I don't care what agenda is being run. I just want to talk to the scientists, and that's all you're going to hear from me. I'm not an infectious disease specialist. I'm not an immunologist, but I have access to the top people in their fields. And so I'm telling you what they're telling me, which is pure science. And look, we all must do our part to control the spread of this virus and flatten that curve so we don't overwhelm the hospitals and return to our normal lives. And although the numbers keep changing as the virus continues to spread, right now, 1 in 4 adults are avoiding public places, and 28% of all seniors are practicing complete isolation. I think it should be a whole lot more than that. Even celebrities are practicing self-isolation, some because they have contracted coronavirus and some because they don't want to. Now, my dear friend Oprah recently shared a video of her partner Stedman, also a very good friend of mine, and he has been relegated to their guest house after traveling and taking several flights. And my buddy and son's business partner, Dax Shepard, also took it upon himself to self-isolate in a friend's empty apartment recently after getting off a flight. Now, to show support, his wife Kristen and daughter even performed a dance routine for him outside in the street as Dax looked on from the window. We've seen so many other people ignoring isolation orders altogether. Some examples include young adults banned from congregating on beaches actually moving offshore and partying on boats. What the hell? Others are crowding boardwalks and hiking trails. Very few are 6 feet apart. And the most disgusting example I've seen, it was in the Daily Mail. A 26-year-old man, and I use that advisedly, in Missouri was charged for making a terrorist threat after he shared a video on Snapchat of himself licking toiletries in Walmart while taunting, "Who's scared of coronavirus?" Well, you should be, you moron. But why? Why are some people taking this so seriously, relegating loved ones with no symptoms to the basement, while others are seemingly so defiant? Well, I'm going to talk about that later. But first, what happens when you do choose or have to isolate? What happens when you're all alone? When you don't live with a spouse, you don't have children, when your family lives in other states, what happens when you really are isolated? You're used to being surrounded by people at work or out in the world, and suddenly the silence is deafening. Suddenly you truly are alone, isolated, and you feel it. You're feeling lonely, sad, and even depressed. Now, some of the questions I've been asked on all of my social platforms include, Dr. Phil, what should I do all day? How do I stop feeling lethargic and depressed? How do I know if my depression has crossed from boredom into actual depression and into the dangerous zone where I'm actually entertaining suicidal thoughts? I plan to answer those questions and many, many more with real advice that can be used and used today, put to work today. And there's a delightful woman that I'm going to talk to now. Her name is Donna. She's a 63-year-old professor with no underlying health conditions and says she is self-isolating because she is scared of contracting the virus. She just respects it. And it's been 11 days since she last left her home, and she says that she has fallen into a depression and is worried about her mental health if the need to self-isolate continues too much longer. Donna, how are you doing?
I've been better, but I'm not sick, which is good. I'm not sick, but I have been isolating for quite a while. You're right. I've been home for 11 days or 12 days straight. And the only reason I went out then was to run a quick trip to the grocery store. So, but it's getting to me, and I am depressed.
Let's get it on the table what you're dealing with here. Now, first off, you're a widow of 2.5 years, correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Very sorry for your loss, by the way. I know
Thank
it's been
you.
2.5 years, but that loss is still very prominent in your life, I know.
Yes.
And so you are living alone, correct?
Right. Yes. Me
Right.
and my 2 dogs,
Right.
who I'm lavishing with so much love, they want to run from me every time they see me. They're getting tired of being hugged, I think.
Yeah, so it's pretty bad when your dogs are running to hide because you're hugging them too much, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now, you say that you've actually started obsessing some,
Yes. I-
picking kind of random things to focus on.
Yeah, it's worrisome. I have, for example, I was actually watching your show, and I wanted to find out a little more information about a guest, and I went on your website and actually, while I was there, there was something that popped up about a headline of gun sales going up. Okay. And we're also hearing things about prisoners being released from jail. So I read this article about gun sales. And while I'm reading that, an ad comes up, guns for ladies. I do not have a gun, want a gun, never thought about guns, but I found myself going there. And now I'm obsessing about things like, am I going to get robbed for my toilet paper or something? You know, it's that kind of thinking. It's ridiculous to me. But
Okay.
at the same
Now-
time, I feel like I really can't, I almost can't control that, where my mind
Okay.
goes.
I'm going to deal with that in a minute. But now tell me about your depression. I know that you're not sleeping the way you want to. You're not eating the way you want to. You're not scheduling the way that you think is most healthy. But tell me about your thinking that's caused you to believe that depression has moved into a zone that has you concerned.
I'm not interested in many things right now. I am supposed to be working. I teach and I'm teaching online, but I feel like I wonder whether what I'm doing is worth it. I feel like I'm just in this, you know, slogging through something heavy, you know, like concrete or something. It's very hard to get myself motivated. I might sit there and zone out in front of the TV and find myself just crying over something stupid. It's just hard to focus on things. So I think, and just to try to do the normal things seems very heavy to me.
All right. Well, your mental health is just as important, if not more important, than your physical health. And we're going to take a break and continue this conversation with Donna next, because it is a very important conversation for all of us to have good mental hygiene when we come back. You know, we've all heard the old saying, be careful what you wish for. We've all wished for a lot of free time, being able to just kind of hang out and do what we want to do. And now we have it. And during, and I quote, normal times, each and every one of us might crave that free time, that time at home, a little alone time, just a brief respite from work, daily life, obligations, and even some time away from family. But when it's forced on you, it can begin to feel more like a prison sentence than an escape. You want it to be your choice, not something that is dictated to you. I'm talking to Donna from North Carolina, and she was used to living alone, but now she feels completely alone because she's shut off from friends and family, which is sending her into what she calls a kind of a scary depression. She's afraid she won't be able to snap out of this anytime soon. And Donna, I'm really glad to hear that you recognize this. And I've got some good news for you, because this is something that's manageable, and I have an awful lot to say about it. So I hope you hear this as good news when I tell you that you're not alone in this.
That is good to hear, because I think that's one of the problems. I mean, we're sitting here alone, so we feel really alone, and you don't realize how much, you know, how do I replace human touch and interaction? Because I can be online with somebody, but it's not the same. It's just not the same. And I think it's wearing on all of us. And I'm in that sort of group, the older group that's really not supposed to get this virus. And I mean, is it worth all this anxiety and loneliness? You know, how bad is it?
And you felt like you had grieved the loss of your husband, but now that you have all this time to do a deeper dive into your soul and your psyche, you're wondering if you really did grieve completely, because this is coming back to haunt you some, right?
Yeah, he passed away about 2.5 years ago, and it was very sudden and very unexpected. And I think things just moved so fast then. And then you get involved in life and you think you're supposed to be over it. But then something like this happens and you realize that you don't have your partner. And I think you start to go through that process all over again.
Sure. And you say you're afraid, and I'm quoting you here, of becoming the, quote, crazy lady at the end of the cul-de-sac in her pajamas all day watching Dr. Phil. There are worse fates.
There are worse fates. The thing is, I don't know about other people, but when, at some point you just have to hear voices. And you actually have you're on a station that plays reruns for like hours at a time. And I have you on in the background so I can hear voices. But yeah, I mean, I find myself getting up, not getting dressed, sitting in my pajamas, trying to remember when I took a shower last. And that's not who I want to be.
Well, let's talk about this, because you have identified some important warning signs, and you've asked a very real question, and that is, how do I replace the human touch and interaction? And one of the answers to that is realize, first off, this is time limited here. I mean, truly it is. We know this isn't a life sentence here. We know we're going to come out the other end. And you've recognized some of the warning signs in that your mood has become very labile. It's changeable, and you recognize that. You're finding yourself really getting deep into your thoughts, crying sometimes for no reason, feeling very lonely, questioning the value of what you do. Does it really matter? It's kind of the existential crisis of, what's the point? Am I really making a difference here? And these are some of the things that people get into when they start experiencing depression. And you're in what I like to refer to as a social recession right now, because you're being separated from everyone else. And we do tend to regress sometimes, because if somebody would have said a year ago, would you be sitting around in your pajamas not being able to remember when you showered last, you would have thought, no, not me, no way. I want to tell you that we're going to restart this for you, and you can do it right where you are. And some of the things that I want to go into some detail with you about is, what's the first thing that you need to do when you feel like you have no direction and no purpose? Is let's get back to what we did when we felt like we did have purpose. We did have meaning. When your life felt vital, you got up every day, you took a shower, you got dressed, you had a to-do list, you had projects, right?
Yes.
And so you stopped doing that now. So common sense tells us we need to get back to what works for you in your life. And I'm going to tell you, as strange as it may seem, I want you to get up every day, take a shower, put on your makeup, do your hair, get dressed, just like you were going to do when you had to be at the university, when you had to go do things. And right after the break, I'm going to tell you some things that are really going to make a difference and fill that void in your life. And you're going to love what I'm getting ready to tell you right after the break. I'm back, and I'm talking to Donna, who is a delightful woman from North Carolina. She is in social isolation, which she should be, and she is a vitally active woman when she's in her normal life. But now, because of the coronavirus, she is following the guidelines, and she has very responsibly socially isolated herself. But she's 2.5 years into being a widow. And she says she's hugging her dog so much for companionship that they're starting to hide under the bed or somewhere. And she's saying, look, this is starting to slip into depression for me, and I need some help on how to turn this around. Now, Donna, you just heard me saying that you need to get up, shower, get ready, get dressed for your day, just like you did before. Does that make common sense to you?
Yeah, it absolutely does.
As silly as some of the things I say may sound, you're going to have to trust me here.
Okay.
The things I want you to do personally that I just talked about, and then you've got to decide, okay, look, get up. I've watched Robin do this since we've been in social isolation. She's organizing closets. She's doing things that she's needed to do, moving things around. Do something that makes your house different. Move furniture around. Do things that make it look different. Start, if you don't play music all the time, start playing music. And you've got to decide that winners do things losers don't want to do. So you've got to start getting active, getting busy, and find a project that you can start. Choose something that you put on a timeline and hold yourself accountable. And I can tell you the thing that will fill you up faster than anything is give away that which you need the most. Find out what you can do to give to other people. Make yourself a vital warrior in this social isolation time where you're saying, I've got 3 people I need to call on today. I've got things I need to do. I've got projects. And then I want you to start listing at the end of every day, listing 20 blessings that you have in your life. Get out a list and write down 20 blessings that you have in your life. You've got a sharp mind. You've got a great career to go back to. You've got people that love and care about you. You've got dogs that you can find when they hide. You've got all of these. You list your blessings, because we focus on what we don't have instead of what we do have. And I can see a light bulb over your head right now. You know what I'm telling you is right.
In fact, can I ask you a question? One thing I actually thought of doing is I've been seeing a lot of commercials that say the Red Cross needs blood really badly, and I've thought about going to give blood, but is that dangerous, do you think?
Well, you have to make certain that you're going to a place that is following all of the guidelines, and you need to make certain that that's true, and you need to talk to them and find out and be sure they're following all the protocols. And we do need blood. People need it very, very desperately. That's something you can do. And find out, call your church, find out the elderly people they have that are really locked away and how you can help with them, run errands for them, drop things off, all of those things you can start looking for. Create vitality the way you do when you're not in social isolation. We're going to talk some more about this, but I'm going to ask a colleague to join the conversation. He specializes in loneliness. And I want Donna and everyone else out there coping or struggling with isolation, loneliness, or depression to hear some of his advice and expertise as well. We're going to add him to this conversation when we come back. Joining us now is Dr. Norman Freed. He is a disaster mental health specialist for the American Red Cross of Greater New York, and has a private practice in grief, loneliness, and bereavement counseling on Long Island. So, Dr. Freed, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Doctor, you've been listening to my conversation with Donna, and do you find more people are experiencing things similar to this since this coronavirus has started? This is different than a natural disaster,
Absolutely.
like a hurricane that hits one city. So this is the whole country.
Well, it's the whole world, actually. And what Donna is saying is quite reflective of most of my patients. My days now are filled with doing remote psychotherapy with people who are calling in because they're just so lonely and afraid, and their ruminations and obsessions are getting the better of them. Donna was describing many of the vegetative symptoms of depression, including this feeling of ineffectual work experience, as well as crying at the drop of a hat and feeling as if she's wading through wet cement just to get from one side of the room to the other. These are very common symptoms that 90% of my practice is now struggling with. It's interesting because the work is no longer about grief, bereavement that started them to come into therapy. It's now, what do I do to get through this social isolation?
Right. And this is something that is likely to go on anywhere from weeks to another number of months. And
Absolutely.
This is something that I have said many times that I fear that the depression, suicide, stress that compromises people's health can take a bigger toll on our society than the actual virus does itself. And if we don't maintain good mental hygiene along the way, this can become a real reality for us that people aren't talking very much about. Would you agree?
So I agree with you 100%. And I often say that the emotional contagion is more virulent than the physical contagion. And both are really at this point getting more and more rampant. But we are capable of frightening ourselves. And when we become over anxious, we actually think irrational thoughts. We have these fantasies that don't always make sense. We even misperceive certain things that we're being told on the news. And we create stories that not really apply to the generalized world. And then when we go on such platforms as Facebook or listen to other people talking to us, we actually scare ourselves even more. It's so important that we be able to discern the distinction between a fact and a feeling.
And when we're talking with someone like Donnie, it's really important that she can get out and meet with other people. As long as she maintains separation, she can go walk with friends on the track or whatever at the high school if she maintains separation, but she still has that human connection, that warmth of being together, but just maintain the separation that is recommended so they don't have this contagion of the disease. That's a healthy thing to do, correct?
That's very important. It's important to get, for many reasons, Dr. Phil, it's important to get yourselves outside of the home once in a while, because when you get in touch with the elements of nature, when you feel the sun on your back, when you feel the wind in your hair, you're generating neurotransmitters such as dopamine and norepinephrine, which makes us feel more buoyant and more hopeful. Secondly, you are maintaining some version of social contact with the proper distance of 2 meters, 6 feet. But there's something that's missing when we're alone in our homes, and that's what we call mirror neurons. And when you go outside and look at somebody, there's a neurotransmitter in our brains that are being engaged because we see the eyes of another person. It's so important while we are in this phase of being touch deprived that we are not contact deprived through our voice, through our body language. Touch is now replaced with talk. Hugs are replaced with feelings from the heart. And that there's a new way to communicate by using our voice.
Yes, and eye contact. And Donna, you're hearing what we're saying here, right? This makes sense to you, and this is something that you would welcome doing, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's, I think people are so afraid of what can they do and what they can't do. And I think it's really good to hear somebody talk about what we can do that would be safe and what the ways are that we can sort of make up for what we're missing. So I think that's huge.
Yeah, you can meet people, just maintain that separation, but you can still make eye contact. You can still have that physical connection. Okay, we've got to take a break. Now, is there a way we can actively maintain happy and healthy mental health when there is so much chaos, stress, and uncertainty in the world? And what is going on with these people that are just ignoring everything and going on like nothing has ever happened? We'll talk about that when we come back. We've been talking about being lonely at home, feeling like you're in prison, but we've also seen the photos of people gathering at crowded beaches or on boats actively defying stay-at-home orders. In Kentucky, a group of young adults actually decided to throw a coronavirus party. And so far, at least one person who attended the party has contracted coronavirus. It's gotten so bad that these coronavirus rebels have actually inspired the new Urban Dictionary term, COVID-idiot. So why are people, especially young people, acting so foolishly and carelessly during a global pandemic? I mean, that's what we're talking about. Dr. Freed, let me let you weigh in on this. I've talked about it some before, but I find this very disturbing.
Right. So I want to answer it in 3 particular ways. Most importantly, it is very common that many of us, if not all of us, are experiencing symptoms of post-traumatic stress from these scary times. One of the most powerful symptoms of PTSD is a sense of numbness or shock. This isn't happening to me. This doesn't apply to me. I feel fine. And so what I think may be happening with some of these folks is a sense of it's not affecting my life. I'm going to go about it because the way I want to because PTSD has set in. A second reason is that there are several people in our world that struggle with personality disorders, where they either have sense of narcissism or belief in invincibility. So they're going to go out and say, this isn't going to affect me. It's not going to come to me or my people. And that element of the personality disorder creates this need to gather. There are people who also have an inability to be alone. Abandonment is a scary thing for many, many people. So they would even perhaps venture out and challenge that feeling of abandonment so that they have at least some contact, even if the contact could be dangerous to them. And so there are several personality reasons why.
Well, let me see if I understand you right. You're saying that you believe that these kids that are going on spring break in defiance of the guidelines are suffering from PTSD?
That, Dr. Phil, I'm saying that those kids are struggling with a sense of narcissism and a sense of invincibility, which is developmentally appropriate for that age group. But there are those that are still going back and forth to work when they shouldn't, that are older, but they themselves are feeling this isn't happening to me, so I'm going to be more out there in the environment. The people you speak of are struggling more with a sense of, I'm not going to be affected or infected by this. It's very selfish. It's very puerile and immature behavior. It's unfortunately quite common in certain age groups.
Yeah, I've watched these kids that are doing this, and I think about the characteristics of the narcissistic personality, in that narcissists tend to think they're very special, that they're entitled. They tend to be interpersonally exploitive. They lack empathy. They're arrogant and haughty in their attitudes. And I've listened to a lot of these kids on spring break be interviewed, and that's what I'm tending to hear. And then I look at the antisocial personality components, where they just fail to conform. They're reckless with other people's safety. And it just seems to me that combination of immaturity is what's causing them to do what they're doing. And then I think they're just not thinking about the fact that, okay, I think they're wrong to think that they can't get this and that it can't be serious, but then they come back and stand in the line at the post office and get someone that's 70 years old infected, which could actually be life-threatening, and they're not giving that much thought at all.
Let's talk about the etiology of the narcissism, which starts in a time of life where we aren't getting our needs met in infancy. What happens is that as we get older, we say, I don't need anybody. I can handle my own needs. My needs aren't being met by a caretaker. And so we have this bluster, this sense of gravitas that we can do what others can't do. The truth about this, Dr. Phil, is that gravitas is really a way of denying a sense of hollowness, a sense of smallness. Many of those folks on those beaches who walk through the stores saying they are not going to hurt anybody have a very small sense of self. They're actually quite frightened on the inside, and they're acting in the opposite in an effort to not scare themselves. In that narcissistic style of theirs, they're putting most of us in great danger.
Yeah, that's really sad too, because we just had the first report of a teenager dying of coronavirus here in Los Angeles recently. I wonder if the news of that young person's death might change some of these kids' attitudes about this invincibility, because early on they were saying young people might have a mild set of symptoms and then be right over this, but we're starting to see a different set of data now.
We are, and I hope it sobers the people who are not taking this as seriously as possible. I spend all of my days talking via FaceTime to patients now. Many of them are sitting in their beds recuperating with COVID-19, and they are scared, and they're young. They're people who are back from vacations or back from being a junior abroad in Spain or Italy and now contracting the virus. They're not having a good time. They're frightened, and they're also in physical pain as well. And I wish that more teenagers were aware that their peers, their counterparts, are really struggling, and it would sober them up a bit and help them take this much more seriously.
Yeah, the mental aspects and reaction to this disorder can have profound effects. And when we get depressed, it can lead to serious health issues. We're going to talk about all of that when we come back. Days ago, a 64-year-old man in New York City jumped to his death from his 16th floor apartment. His neighbors believed it was due to him being isolated because of coronavirus. His suicide note read, "How do you enjoy life?" Should we expect more of the same going forward, or are there ways to prevent these horrible tragedies? And of course, there are ways to prevent it, but you have to acknowledge first that this is happening, and there are red flags to this. I'm talking to Dr. Norman Freed, who is a disaster mental health specialist. Donna is listening in because she's been dealing with some of these issues herself. Dr. Freed, how do people spot what are some of the red flags they can look to so they don't get to the point that they feel hopeless and that they're a burden?
It's a wonderful question. It's very important that those of us that are self-isolating, socially isolating in an environment where we're alone, we're widowers, or our families have grown and moved on, it's important that we notice many of the symptoms of depression. And Donna has elaborated several of them for us gratefully, and those include a sense of hopelessness in the future, a lack of energy or interest in work activity or even the usual events of the day, a sense of lack of order and structure in our day. We remember that structure regulates emotion. So when we create structure, we actually stave off those feelings of depression. Donna and others will talk about feeling as if they're wading through maple syrup to get from one side of the room to the other. You call that, Dr. Phil, psychomotor retardation. These are the symptoms we need to look for. And we have to tell people when we feel these things that we're not in a good place and we need to reach out so others will know and help us. Connection breaks the barrier, the constriction and isolation that we are all feeling these days, and it will help us maintain better mental health.
And when you see people that are feeling this depression, whether it's acute or chronic, it really can have a profound effect on their physical health, correct?
And it's important to remember that some people will not consider themselves depressed, but depression and anxiety are sister disorders. So for those who are watching, who are saying, I'm not sad, I'm not hopeless, but very anxious, that's another sign that they're going through a type of depression or dysthymia. And it can ultimately lead to lower immune functioning. So we want to maintain physical fitness and work on boosting our immune system, as well as staying connected to those that we care about through the internet or media platforms or telephone. We want to have structure in our day, as you so nicely placed it, so that we can all stave off what is really a malaise that is setting over our society.
Yeah, and listen, people, there are red flags, and we put them up, and we always put numbers up for hotlines. And understand, when you call a hotline, a suicide hotline, they're not going to force you to give your name. They're not going to come knocking on your door. They're going to answer your questions. They're going to listen to you. So don't feel that you're going to put pressure on yourself. But some people wrongly think people that talk about suicide don't commit it. That is not true. So talking about suicide as an option is a red flag. Researching ways to kill themselves is a red flag. If they feel or talk about hopelessness or being a burden to others are red flags. Feeling trapped, backed into a corner, whether it's legal or financial, disappointing people in their life. They feel like they're in a situation they can't fix, or they're suffering unbearable pain. These are all signs. And if you see them withdrawing from life, whether it's friends, church, family, whatever, that's an important sign. And telling people goodbye in a profound way, you need to pay attention to that. If they start giving away prized possessions, and of course, as Dr. Freed was saying, depression, anxiety, shame, anger, rage, all of these things are warning signs. So learn to listen to the people around you, and they'll tell you what they're thinking if you will just listen. But you do have to listen. And Donna, I can't tell you how glad I am that you've given a voice to your feelings. And I really hope that you'll behave your way out of this the way that I've been talking about, by creating that structure, getting some purpose, and re-engaging with the world. You don't have to be lonely just because you're in social isolation.
Thank you. I think that that's really important. And I was already thinking about things that you were talking about earlier. And I used to love to write lists of things I wanted to get done. And I think I'm going to write a list and then walk the dogs and maybe get started right away.
Sounds like a great idea. Coming up, I've been getting a lot of questions about pets. Donna was talking about her dogs, and I'm going to answer this question when we come back. COVID-19 has changed all of our lives. For the first time in 18 seasons, I'm taping from my own home. You can see behind me, I'm in my kitchen, sitting on a stool. We all have so many unanswered questions, and I'm blessed to be talking to some of the greatest medical and mental health experts in the country. And since I get a chance to do that, I want to pass it on to all of you. I don't pretend to be an expert in all things, but I do know how to find the experts in the different areas. And so I've been interviewing them and then passing it on or inviting them to come on and talk about it. I received an email question just recently from John in New Orleans who asked, if I do get this virus, could my pets get coronavirus from me? Can animals contract a human virus? Now, I thought it was a really good question, and I, of course, didn't know the answer to it because I'm not an infectious disease specialist, but I did a deep dive with the CDC, and they say they have not received any reports of pets or other animals becoming sick with COVID-19. But they do recommend staying away from animals and other people if you become sick. Now, coronavirus tends to be very species specific, and cross-species transmission is quite uncommon. However, it is possible that coronavirus could infect other species, but if the disease changes species, it will no longer be a cat, dog, or human virus, but rather a new virus altogether. So it's highly unlikely, and it doesn't mean you need to give your pets away. It just means you need to not be letting them lick you in the mouth or whatever. Is probably not the best idea. Just use some common sense. And guys, I'm just going to tell you, I really want to get your questions because that's what I'm doing. I'm here to answer your questions. I thought Donna had a great question today that is so relatable to so many people, of being alone and being isolated. And I felt like we really talked about some important things today that she can overcome that with. And I really want to thank Donna for being here, and a special thanks to Dr. Norman Freed, who has such a great insight and is so vertically developed in this area that he brings some real wisdom to this. And so I thank Dr. Norman Freed for being here, and I hope to have Dr. Freed come and be with us live in the studio when we get back. And I say that because we are going to come back. This will have an end, and we will get back. So people, remember, this is not a life sentence. It's not a life sentence. This too shall pass, and we just need to take pride in being creative while we're in this situation, but respect the guidelines. And the best way to fill yourself up is to give away what you need the most. Call your church, call your community center, ask people you know what you can do to help somebody that is perhaps more trapped and less mobile than you are. So please give. That's what will help you. And if you don't have money, give of your time, give of your heart. Now, for more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. Don't forget to check me out on any of my social media outlets, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That's where I'm finding your questions that I can answer. I really appreciate your being here. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time.